I feel the need. The need for speed.
Detroit is the centre of America's motor industry, and today it hosts the 9th annual ITT Automotive Grand Prix. Paul Tracy leads the championship after 3 wins on the ovals, but a neck problem has caused his last-minute withdrawal from today's race. That means an opportunity for Michael Andretti to close the 24-point gap to the top of the table, on the track where he's won twice before, including last year. He starts 6th. It's also a chance for Alex Zanardi to put a disappointing Milwaukee race behind him. He starts from the 2nd row today. He was fastest in the warm-up. And Greg Moore comes to Detroit on a high from his debut success in Milwaukee. Now up to 4th in the championship, the 22-year-old is in great form and starts 7th. The situation all set up for this 8th round of the championship. The beautiful weather conditions here on the Belle Isle in Detroit. We're just across the river from Canada, from Ontario. A very warm welcome from Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw as we look forward to another street race in the championship. The scene down in the pits as the cars get ready for the start of this 77-lap event, and the weather conditions certainly very much better than they were last year. The pole sitter is Gilles de Ferran after a superb effort in qualifying that saw him do just 3 flying laps, but that was all that he required to take his 2nd pole position of the year. The championship sees Paul Tracy at the top of the table by 24 points from Michael Andretti. Alex Zanardi 3rd, Greg Moore in 4th place after that win last weekend, and Scott Pruitt, another winner this year, in 5th. Further down the order, Al Unser Jr. way down there in 10th position in the championship after a lot of bad luck, and that included yesterday when he had problems. But the big story as we go into this race is the winner of the Detroit race in 1994, and the leader of the championship, Paul Tracy, is unable to compete in today's event. He's won 3 races in a row on the ovals so far this season, including a dramatic last-gasp victory in St. Louis. But the neck problems that hampered him in qualifying yesterday have meant that he's unable to race today. He will have to sit on the sidelines and watch what's going on as somebody else gets closer to him in the championship table. He'll not be starting from where he should be on row 6 of today's grid, and that'll mean a gap alongside Bobby Rahal. But Greg Moore, the winner of last weekend's race in Milwaukee, is certainly in great form. Looking back to Paul Tracy here, who won that, once again, won that 1994 race, but the other Canadian, Greg Moore, he was the one who was successful last weekend. A fantastic victory in the closing laps when everybody thought that he was going to be running out of fuel, and finally he managed to get to the checkered flag safely. Michael Andretti, a winner here on 2 previous occasions. He'll be starting from the 3rd row of the grid alongside Scotland's Dario Franchitti. His first win came quite a few years ago now. He was a 4 times pole position sitter in the first 4 years that this race was held, and there a great view of the Belle Isle Park and a look at the resurfacing work that's been going on. You can see the scrape marks that the machines have left on the track, and there's what we've been talking about in qualifying, as if it's been finely combed, and this surface is what is going to cause problems to the tyres as we go through today's race. It's a bit like a cheese grater, as we mentioned, Jeremy, and that is what the teams are worried about.
They are indeed. Tyre wear going to be very, very crucial. There is Carl House going through his traditional pre-race ritual, a prayer there for the car and the driver, and Carl hopes that everything stays in one piece on that car this afternoon. And as you say, Ben, tyres will be crucial here. Most people are starting on the more conservative of the tyres. That's both Goodyear and Firestone, but some of the Goodyear people in particular are starting on the softer tyre, and that's going to be a little bit of a concern. Gilles de Ferran starts at the front of the grid. It is difficult to pass on this racetrack, so he'll be hoping just to keep ahead of the opposition till they get to the first round of pit stops. There is Dario Franchitti 5th on the grid, but Gilles de Ferran hoping to get through to the first stop, then put on the more conservative tyres and go on from there.
There is Roger Penske down in the pit lane, and of course the big story of this race so far, before we even get underway, is that Paul Tracy has had to withdraw. Now I know you had a little chat with Roger Penske before you came over.
Yeah, just as I came across here, he was in the pit area there explaining that Paul Tracy's had these sort of muscle spasms, neck spasms all weekend. They think it's some sort of a virus, but they're not really too sure. The Dr. Steve Aldley evaluated Paul Tracy both last night and again this morning. He was on an IV drip. He was prescribed plenty of rest. He did drive the car fairly briefly in the warm-up this morning, but again, he was having problems. He tended to black out, and under braking, that's just way too dangerous. He wanted to carry on. Roger Penske said, no, not this weekend.
Gentlemen, start your engines!
So traditional starting call, and the engines fire up down there in the pit lane, and there's 27 cars as it is now with no Paul Tracy on the grid. Fire up. The absolutely fantastic weather conditions, perfect for today's race. A big difference to last year's race, which started in wet conditions. There's also a tremendous crowd here today, and Detroit has absolutely come alive this weekend. It's hosted a fantastic hockey match last night, but now we're getting into what should hopefully be a fantastic race. Gilles de Ferran then and Scott Pruitt sharing the front row. Scott Pruitt, winner in Surfers Paradise earlier this year, but don't forget Gilles de Ferran's pace in Long Beach. They've both had great performances on street tracks. Roberto Moreno will be starting probably his last race for Newman Haas here this weekend. Christian Fittipaldi will be taking over the car. Alex Zanardi will be starting on the second row as well. He won at Long Beach, remember. Fantastic performance from Dario Franchitti, his best qualifying of the year so far, putting him ahead of Michael Andretti, who looks to try and close that points gap on Paul Tracy. Greg Moore and Maurizio Gugelmin line up together on the fourth row of the grid, and Moore on a high after that win last weekend. Maurizio Gugelmin matching his worst qualifying performance of the year. Still pretty good. Brian Herter and Mark Blundell sharing row 5 of the grid. Watch out for Mark today. He had his best result of the year, matched it here last year with a 5th place. Bobby Rahal not alongside Paul Tracy, with Tracy out of the race. Bobby Rahal already a winner at this track. That was back in '92. Jimmy Vasser looking to try and tie up the consecutive finish record, in fact matched the record at 25 here today. Raul Boesel, he's had 2 runner-up finishes here in Detroit in the past. Parker Johnston, his best finish this year came on another street track. That was Long Beach. Alonso Jr. has never won this race in Detroit, but from the row 8, it's going to be hard to do it this year. Richie Hearn and Andre Ribeiro make it an all-Lola 9th row to the grid. Richie Hearn doing another fine performance, the youngster in his car. Patrick Carpentier has been disappointing. The rookie driver who's battling with Franchitti in the rookie honours this year, he lines up alongside the Italian who put in a good effort in the Toyota-powered Reynard Max Papis. Christian Danner returns to Indy cars this weekend in a surprise move, replacing Paul Jasper, and Gualter Sales lines up alongside him, the Brazilian in the Davis racing car. Juan Fangio and PJ Jones once again share a row as they did last weekend. This time it's the 12th row, and they scored the first points for Toyota here last year with PJ Jones driving. Adrian Fernandez had a disappointing weekend so far, so he's back on row 13, and alongside him is the young Mexican Michel Jourdain. And then the last 2 on the grid, our second German, Arndt Meyer. It's the first time that 2 Germans have ever started a PPG kart race, and Hiro Matsushita joins him on the final row of the grid. So that's the lineup for the start of this race as Gilles de Ferran leads round behind the pace car. We'll take a quick break and return for the start. At Detroit here with the Belle Isle Park, absolutely fabulous in the sunshine, and this is a 1,000-acre park. We're looking at one end of it really, which is where the racetrack is. It extends quite a lot in the background. There's a zoo here. There's all sorts of fun and games that you can do here over the weekend. Yeah,
there's a major yacht club there. In fact, between the yacht club and Detroit proper, so to speak, there was a hydroplane race last weekend, I think. It was well, it was supposed to be wet for the hydroplanes, of course, but it was heavy rain all weekend there, so we're jolly lucky this weekend. I know before I came up here on Thursday, they were predicting 3 days of rain here. By Friday morning, that had changed to 3 days of sunshine. Let's go with the sunshine, shall we?
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's look at the track there. You can see that it's tight and twisty, like most street tracks. But there are a few passing areas. It is possible if you're brave, but you have to be brave, committed, and you need a bit of cooperation from the others around you. Turns 1 and 2 are actually quite fast. They're taking those in 4th gear, dropping down to 3rd for turn 3, then some 2nd gear stuff through a little complex of corners. Then through turn 7, they're onto the longest straight, but it's difficult to overtake into turn 8 because of the way that the road curves just at the wrong moment, really, Jeremy. They're looking to change the track for next year, and hopefully that will then make overtaking a little bit more possible.
Yeah, they've actually been talking about that for a couple of years now. We're watching the cars go through turns 1 and 2 there, over that little bridge there, bit of a bump there. The cars tend to go sideways, and there is turn 3 as it stands now. Next year they'll go straight along there at the top of the screen, and they go on for about another good quarter mile or so, and then there's going to be a very tight right-hander. So that was nice and wide, that avenue there between the trees. There'll then be a tight right-hander at the end of it. That should be really good for overtaking. That'll transform this racetrack, I believe.
Yes, they're coming through this tight section, which will be eradicated by those changes. Just to talk about a little bit more about the city of Detroit as well. It's been an amazing weekend here for them. The Detroit Red Wings, the ice hockey team, winning the Stanley Cup last night, which is about the biggest thing that an ice hockey team can possibly win. The whole city was alive last night. The streets were just full of people at sort of midnight and well into the early hours of this morning. And so a lot of fans have come along to the race here. Bit bleary-eyed perhaps, a few hangovers amongst them, but it's an absolutely fabulous day on the Belle Isle Park, and the scene is set for a very, very exciting race this afternoon. Gilles de Ferran leads the 27 cars around then on the warm-up lap. 77 lap race this will be, and as you can see, the pit window between 25 and 28, but watch out to see what they do exactly. It is even possible on the fuel to make just one stop on this track, as the teams were telling me, if you run carefully on fuel. But it's highly unlikely because of the tyre wear situation and the fact that the tyre pickup is bad here as well. If you run offline, there's a lot of little bits of rubber on the track, and that's going to make the car handle very badly. They're beginning to build up a bit of speed now. We're coming around to take the green flag as they get to the start-finish line. They've got to get themselves into order here, and that's exactly what Gilles de Ferran's doing.
In the wet last year, we had a single file start for safety purposes. It's dry this year. Green flag, 2 abreast. Here we go. Gilles de Ferran leading up to the line across into turn 1. Has the line ahead of Scott Pruitt and Roberto Moreno. Incident there behind. Alex Zanardi gets sideways across the middle of the pack.
Yeah, there are problems for Zanardi straight away. He made contact with somebody, and it's difficult to see how they've all ended up. We could see that out of our commentary box window as they went into the first corner. That is Zanardi's nose cone that you can see lying in the middle of the road, and already the Italian is in trouble. Dario Franchitti, I think, survived that. He was in the middle. There is Franchitti just going through picture. There's a gap, and that gap has been formed by the accident that happened to Zanardi. Now let's just see if we can spot where he is. You can see just going through the picture his teammate Jimmy Vasser. But of Zanardi, well, let's take a look at the replay. De Ferran comes through, Pruitt comes through, Zanardi just locking up, and then a few other little problems going on behind them. And then coming through, and absolute problems as well for Fernandez, who's off into the tyre barrier. So Adrian Fernandez, we've got a full course yellow, and already we have dramas aplenty in the start of this race. Troubles for Alex Zanardi, troubles for Adrian Fernandez, who's had a terrible weekend here already, and it's just got even worse because his race has come to an end against the tyre barrier. So, Jeremy, dramatic opening moments. Let's take another look here. Look at third, fourth. Yes, fourth actually hit by Dario Franchitti. So Zanardi got collected by Franchitti and then swiped the nose off, and then Zanardi was able to rejoin, but that was what caused the problem as they all tried to squeeze into the funnel of turn 1. It is tight, it's a difficult corner. It's a little bit like the first corner at the Nürburgring, with it going right and then left, and often we see troubles there, and that's exactly what we've seen here today. So the first yellow flag period of the race. Belle Isle Park, and Alex Zanardi is out of the race. He's got out of his car, and huge disappointment for the Italian. Starting on the second row of the grid, contact with Alex Zanardi.
I don't even know who hit me, but it's not simply disappointing, it's sort of desperation when you're out of the race.
We're watching the replay here as we come through, and it looked as if, as we take a look one more time from high above, Dario Franchitti gets you sideways.
I mean, it's bad when, you know, when you're out of the race for somebody else's fault, and it's very bad because we are going for this championship, and it's understandable that people is trying to win races, but you know, first corner counts like the last. I won a race last year at the last corner, and I cannot blame somebody for trying to make a position in the first one, but really today we go out from this event with our tail in the middle of our legs. So I'm pretty desperate right now.
Bob?
So Alex Zanardi very disappointed there, obviously, to be out of the race so early on. The contact with Dario Franchitti was all a bit fraught getting into that first corner, and it looked almost as though Zanardi had to slow down a little bit, as perhaps it was Moreno just ahead of him, had to slow down a bit, and Franchitti trying to sort of squeeze down the inside. I don't think he really meant to try and get past Zanardi. Zanardi had to turn into the corner, and left suspension damage there on the right front. So disappointment. Also problems, we didn't actually see what happened to Adrian Fernandez. His car is being lifted out of the way further around the circuit. But it really is a disappointment for Zanardi. Looking to try and close the gap up on Tracy in the championship. Alex Zanardi third coming into this one. He's not going to score any points today. The field around as they're about to go. Green flag racing once again after the first start incident between Zanardi and Franchitti. We've seen Zanardi go out. We've also seen Fernandez go out of the race, but now we get the race underway. Gilles de Ferran leads with Scott Pruitt in second. Roberto Moreno in the red car is in third place, running well. Franchitti in fourth position, Michael Andretti in fifth place, and then Greg Moore in sixth, followed by Maurizio Gugelmin in seventh place. Mark Blundell running in ninth place at the moment. No great changes on that initial start in terms of improvements on grid position, and at the moment Gilles de Ferran is heading the field.
Jimmy Vasser moved up 3 positions from his starting position. He's now running 10th, but of course one of those was Zanardi's problem, the other with Paul Tracy pulling us. We're on board there with Scott Pruitt going down the strand, the longest running, up to about 185 miles an hour or so there, then down 1 gear, 2 gears for the right-hander, much tighter corner, his second gear left-hander. He's close behind Gilles de Ferran, who just wants to keep a steady pace, doesn't want to burn up his tyres too soon. That is the thing that Gilles de Ferran is concentrating on most at this stage.
We've got a Goodyear car up front. That's the car of Gilles de Ferran. He runs the Goodyear tyres. Second place is a Firestone tyred car. That's Scott Pruitt. Firestone seem to think that their tyre running consistently for quite a few laps at a good pace, but we will see for sure in the race. The conditions always that slightly different between the practice sessions and the race sessions. And now Roberto Moreno putting Pruitt under pressure. He's on board with him now. He's also on Goodyear tyres. So we've got a Firestone sandwich, if you like, the Goodyear up ahead, then the Firestone car, then the Goodyears, and we all wait to see how these tyres wear throughout the race. Franchitti, he's on Firestones, and he's in fourth place, hounding the back of Roberto Moreno, running very, very well here. Franchitti actually fastest in one of the practice sessions earlier on in the season, earlier on in the weekend. We've got a yellow flag, apparently. Yellow flag. There is some debris on the track. So we've got the yellow flag, and that seems a bit of a look at this. Well, actually, there's a lot of debris on the track. That is not quite such a surprise, and I wonder there what's gone on there, Jeremy.
Can't imagine. That's Dario Franchitti locking up the brakes there. He obviously didn't see the caution flags. Not sure whether it's one of those markers that's been obliterated somehow or what. Very strange indeed.
That's right. I mean, there's just bits and pieces all over the track.
Well, they're sorting that one out. Just out of the picture there went Jimmy Vasser and Mark Blundell. Somehow on that last lap, Vasser got past Blundell. Here's a replay of what happens. He runs over something, doesn't he?
Yeah, there's something into the track that gets obliterated. It does look like one of those corner markers. I think the sign markers that come into the corner, perhaps the distance boards. They have distance boards here of 300 meters, 200 meters. They're actually hung overhead, and I just wonder whether we've got fairly strong winds today, whether something has pulled that down and somebody has then come along and just obliterated it. So a very strange reason for a yellow flag. We've only completed 5 laps so far, so unlikely to see anybody come in at this stage, very early on indeed. But at the moment, Gilles de Ferran leads this field. Confirmation, we're just getting news that it was indeed one of the markers put out to indicate to the drivers how close to the corner they are, and that has, for some reason, it's come down onto the track and it's been smashed into pieces. So the safety workers going out there now to try and clear up the mess, and Gilles de Ferran just leads the field around under the yellow flags at the moment. 77 laps due to run here today. If there is a problem with lots of yellow flags, then there is a possibility, I suppose, it could go to the 2-hour maximum. If it goes to 2 hours, then the checkered flag comes out anyway.
Yeah, we seem to be coming up with some new ideas for cautions at the beginning of races this year, don't we, Ben? We seem to have problems getting the races underway most everywhere we go, but a legitimate reason, I suppose. There's debris all over the place, and obviously you can see how slippery it was, people getting sideways over those shards of, I guess it must be polystyrene or something. There's the CART safety team trying to sweep up the best they can.
Yeah, it's not an easy job, is it? So many little bits and pieces out there. Cars just coming round. and the car's being waved away. We had a brilliant shot just a moment ago then of the island and across the Detroit River. You can see Canada.
On the south, funnily enough, the Detroit River here runs sort of from northeast to southwest a little bit, and actually Canada, curiously enough, is actually to the south of us very briefly. So some curious geography up here in the Detroit, Michigan area.
Of course, they suffer very, very cold winters here in Detroit, and that doesn't help the surface of the roads and for the track itself, but also you see it's amazing how much resurfacing work you see going on just in the city. For example, the main drag down towards the track here, Jefferson, that's being completely resurfaced at the moment, and the areas that are not resurfaced, the track is just absolutely in terrible condition. We're taking a little look here at the man who's lying in second place, Scott Pruitt, who when he's not at the track has other ways of enjoying life.
I draw, I create things, a lot of the art in my home I've done. I've even done a whole house. One of my dreams was to build a house from, basically from a lot. So I created a house and picked everything, all the slates and granites and what the interior structure was going to look like and how everything was going to be and how it was all going to come together. And then actually took it one step further, which actually has become a new love of mine, which is landscaping. I've really gotten into and it sounds funny, but I spend so much time on planes. It's given me the opportunity to read a lot about landscaping and plants and annuals and shrubs and trees and et cetera, et cetera. And I actually worked. I have 2.3 acres at the house that I just built, and actually did everything. Picked all the plants, the ones that go in the sun, the ones that go in the shade, the ones that bloom in the winter and the summer, and picked everything, and I really created a whole landscape. And actually have started a small landscape business on the side.
That's Scott Pruitt lying in second place at the moment, and perhaps a slightly different view of a racing driver to what you might imagine.
Yeah, great character, Scott Pruitt. He used to be very much a ladies' man, and he's now settled down as that lifestyle he was briefly described as there would indicate. And he and his longtime girlfriend Judy got married at the beginning of this year. They had the party, the reception, actually at Scott's house there in California, and a pretty good affair, I guess that was. It's a really nice couple. And a very amiable young man is Scott Pruitt, and a heck of a racing driver as well.
He is, and of course he's had a very good season. A little bit like the last few seasons, he's had a very, very strong start to the championship, and then in the last couple of races he's had a few disappointments. He had that accident at Gateway, and then a 9th place finish in Milwaukee. So Scott Pruitt's last couple of races haven't been so good, but he's in second place here. Gilles de Ferran continues to lead the field at 7 laps. We're coming around to take the green again after the yellow flag for debris on the track. You can hear the engine revs begin to build on Scott Pruitt's car as they come round to take the green flag and get racing underway again. Pruitt there in second place, Moreno in third, and Dario Franchitti in fourth. And we've just had reports from the pits that he feels his car is undamaged after the incident with Alex Zanardi that put Zanardi out of the race in the opening lap. But Franchitti's happy with his car, as he has been all weekend. A superb performance he's put in so far. There he is in the Hogan car, the car run by Carl Hogan, one of the most experienced team owners in the business. They're still running pretty much without sponsorship, but Mercedes very much behind Dario Franchitti's efforts in the PPG Kart Series this year.
Strong representation from Mercedes this weekend. Norbert Haug, the motorsports manager, is here on his way to, of course, the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal, just 3 or 4 hours away. Next weekend, there's Bobby Rahal trying to get past Mark Blundell. That is a battle for 10th position. We're on board now with Bobby Rahal.
Yes, the Motorola car ahead is that of Mark Blundell. Finished in 5th place here last year and has been going well this weekend in the practice sessions. A little unlucky in qualifying. He had took off the left rear corner of that car in qualifying. In fact, it was at the corner that they're coming up to in just a moment here, turn number 13. It was unlucky for Mark, but at the moment he's holding on to 10th position from a former winner here, Bobby Rahal. The problem is for Rahal to try and find a way past, and interestingly, just ahead of Mark Blundell is Rahal's teammate Brian Herter in the Shell-sponsored car. They come through to complete number 9 in terms of laps, and it's still Gilles de Ferran who leads. His advantage just under 0.4 of a second, as we continue to look back at this battle. 9 starts for Bobby Rahal here, and the winner back in 1992. And the man who's really been so unlucky in terms of fuel mileage in some of the recent races. Ran out of fuel dramatically in Rio. He also ran out of fuel last weekend in Milwaukee, where he had some difficulties, and that dropped him down to finish in 11th place at the end of the day. But this is proving to be a good battle. Now watch the straight line speed advantage of Rahal. It gives him a chance to get alongside Blundell, but it's so hard to overtake as they come into a very quick left-hand kink and then into a tight right. It really just isn't quite the opportunity to get alongside there.
He tried, didn't he? That's about the closest you're going to get on that particular track. There's no real way. You can go side by side through that left-hand kink there, but it's a heck of a risk. And on lap 10 out of 77, Bobby Rahal, the veteran that he is, decided, nah, that's too early for that sort of a move. Wheel-to-wheel contact at that speed this early in the race would be just plain stupid. So Rahal, whatever he is, he's not stupid.
Absolutely, he's one of the brightest guys out there, the most experienced driver, really, certainly in terms of number of years racing in the championship, and he certainly hasn't lost any of his competitiveness. Interestingly enough, this weekend, he's actually got his Trans Am team here. He runs a team of Trans Am cars in one of the support races, and that's been going pretty well over the course of the last few events in the championship. But Bobby also very much in control of how his own team runs in the PPG Kart Series. We've got another off, and that looks like Andre Ribeiro. Ribeiro in the second of the Tasman cars. We've seen Fernandez go out already. Tasman, who've had a great day earlier on today, winning the Indy Lights race. They had a 1-2 finish in the Indy Lights with Tony Kanaan winning and Castroneves finishing in second. But today, Jeremy, in the main race, they're not having the same sort of luck, are they?
Disaster. And it's a shame because Andre Ribeiro actually had just moved up a couple of places in the last 2 laps. He got past, first of all, Max Papis, and then also found a way past Patrick Carpentier. So there he is off the road again here, that's in turn 4, I guess, and that's bad news for Andre Ribeiro. Shame. He was quite happy with that car. It'd been going fairly well. They've got a 96 specification nose on the car. Good progress, but end of the day early.
Welcome back to Detroit. Gilles de Ferran leads under yellow flags at the moment. And Scott Pruitt. We're just hearing from Jim McGee, engineer of Scott Pruitt.
When do you begin to look at this as possibly a one-stop race, Jim McGee?
We got a little way to go to make it a one-stop race. Right now, you know, we're just kind of getting a feel for the mileage and looking at, you know, the situation with the tires. So
how is the situation with the tires?
Tires look good, but that's going to determine a lot because you may not be able to go with just one stop on these tires. They're wearing pretty good, you know, in some cases, although our tires, the Firestones, have been doing a hell of a job.
Now, for the layman at home, if he was trying to keep track of it kind of the way you do the numbers here, it's my understanding that a lap under yellow equals how many laps or what part of a lap in a green flag condition here?
Probably about 3.5 laps in a green flag condition, 1 lap under the yellow.
Guys, do the math. We're getting ready to go back to green, too.
So should be racing once again soon. Saw Michel Jourdain coming into the pits there and going back out once more.
Yeah, but a couple of people at the back end of the field. Hiro Matsushita was in, and also Juan Fangio, as that's Andre Ribeiro getting back into the race. He's already 3 laps down, but apparently that car not too badly damaged. He's able to drive it back to the pits. That's a bit of a surprise, isn't it?
It is a surprise, yes.
Well,
it is a bit
not.
damaged, actually. Look
a little toe-in problem, don't
a
you
little
think,
toe-in problem. Yes, that's what we call a serious case of toe-in, when the 2 front wheels are trying to point together in that sort of way. You can see the damage done to the front suspension there, to the front, a little bit of damage to the front wing as well, and Andre very sensibly deciding to drive off the track a little bit, and that's the end of the day for Ribeiro. There's no doubt about that. I think that's really a little bit more than that car can stand. At the moment, the standings, de Ferran leads, Pruitt second, Moreno third, Franchitti running well in 4th, and you can see the other runners up there down to position 15.
Yeah, Jim McGee, they're talking about strategy. Strategy really is, pit strategy is going to be absolutely crucial here as we go on in the race. It's really who can make their last pit stop first is going to be in very, very good shape. And so we're going to see how that plays out as the afternoon goes on. But 13 laps in the books, just about to be 14, getting ready for the green once again.
Okay, Gilles de Ferran then, who's led so far, but we've only had 13 laps so far. So here we go again, and let's see whether we can get a bit more running without the yellow flags coming out. Franchitti chases after Roberto Moreno. That's the battle for 3rd place, and then a little bit of a gap back has gone back as well. fourth position for Michael Andretti, or rather fifth position for Michael Andretti, sixth place for Greg Moore, then Maurizio Gugelmin, Jimmy Vasser, Brian Herta and Mark Blundell. Now the question is whether any of these guys can make a move. Watch out for the black car of Michael Andretti at the back of this group. Always somebody to come on strong towards the end of a race. We've seen it in recent races, and Michael Andretti with this car working superbly well this weekend on a street course, finished in second place at Surfers Paradise, and now with a chance to really close up to Paul Tracy in the championship. Just riding on board with him, chasing after Dario Franchitti.
Interesting, Dario Franchitti able to pull out a little bit of space there on the faster part of the course. Of course, in the slower braking areas, the gap artificially closes down a little bit under braking, but I think not a lot to choose between the cars at this stage of the race. Dario is certainly looking for a way past Roberto Moreno, but that's going to be no easy task.
No, it's not going to be easy at all. Roberto Moreno absolutely fighting for a good result this weekend in his possibly his last drive for Newman Haas. Christian Fittipaldi here this weekend, and he was talking a little earlier about racing, or in fact testing this week. And we've got an interview in the pit lane with Adrian Fernandez. Let's hear from him now.
How frustrating has this season been for your team?
Very, very frustrating, and it's sometimes it's hard to find motivation, but you know, I've been in this situation before in my career, and it hasn't been easy to get where I am, so this is just you know, another building year. We have to keep fighting with the Tasman team. It's just a great team. I have a great guys, and unfortunately we have this big problem with a lot of chassis, and when you qualify so far on the back, you have to try everything, especially here in Detroit, to make as many moves as you can at the beginning of the race, and that's what happened. It was just not enough room in some of the corner there, and got tapped a little bit from behind. I got into the wall.
Look forward to seeing you, Portland.
Thank you.
So another DNF for Adrian Fernandez, follows on from the did not finish in Milwaukee as well. He's had a couple of accidents this year and scored just 9 points so far in the championship. Disappointing season for the man who took a victory last year, but that's just the way it goes, and certainly with the Lola chassis not working at what was expected, they're having a tough season this year, the Tasman team. Back to the leading group though, and Gilles de Ferran still in control at the moment. He can set the pace pretty much, look after his tyres, and everybody else has to follow on behind him. They're running in the dirty air as well, which could be worse for the tyres. It could mean the car slides around that little bit more, and they could be in more danger of graining their tyres. Michael Andretti's dropped back a little bit from this group now. The car not working quite so well, which is interesting to see. And Franchitti really still pushing Roberto Moreno very, very hard. I wonder if we're about to see a bit of a drop-off in performance of the two Swift chassis. If that's the case, of course, remember, Moreno driving the same kind of car as Andretti, and that could mean that Dario Franchitti is going to start pushing even harder.
Yes, he is. It's he's got to plan his moves, though. It's awfully difficult, as we talked about, to make a pass on this racetrack. Just straight away here, there we can see it's quite a pronounced kink there to the left, just before they get on the braking. There is Dario Franchitti using some different lines around in the mirrors of Roberto Moreno, perhaps trying to just fake him out a little bit, just lull him into a false sense of security almost. Through the fountain section of the course here, this next little straight is a good place to get alongside someone if you make an extremely good exit out of turn 12 here into turn 13 under braking. Is a potential passing place, but this early in the race, there's really just no point in forcing the issue. Certainly, bide your time, just look for where you perhaps hold a slight advantage over the next guy.
Yes, very early stages, as you say, Jeremy. 17 laps completed out of the 77, so we've got some 60 laps to go, and as Gilles de Ferran looks comfortable in control of the race, Pruitt in second, Moreno in third, and Franchitti still running strongly in fourth. Further back, Maurizio Gugelmin under pressure from Jimmy Vasser. This is a little battle that's been going on for a while, and this is the battle for 7th position.
Yeah, and right behind them is Brian Herta, and behind Brian Herta now is Bobby Rahal, who's also found a way past Mark Blundell. So Mark's lost a couple of places in the early stages, as we are on board there with Jimmy Vasser in 8th position.
You can see how he's moved up from his starting position of 12th. That was helped by one or two cars going out, of course. Alex Zanardi, Paul Tracy not even making the start of the race, having to withdraw with those neck problems. So that has helped Jimmy Vasser's campaign. But remember, he's going to try and match the run of consecutive finishes, the record for that at 25, and he can do that here today as long as the car keeps running. But there's a long, long way to go yet, and at the moment all he's concentrating on is this battle for 7th place with the Brazilian Maurizio Gugelmin. Gugelmin, who suffered that remarkable accident. We talked about it in qualifying yesterday, about how he had an accident just coming onto the long straight. The wheel came off the car as a result of hitting the wall, landed in one of the ponds on the inside of the park here, almost a lake on the inside, and the wheel just sat there floating until it was rescued by one of the police divers who are on hand to respond to that sort of emergency. But it certainly caused a fair bit of mirth around the circuit as these pictures were beamed around of the police diver going to rescue this wheel from the middle of the lake. But Mauricio Gutschmann in fine form. Just looking there at Alonso Jr., and he is in 14th position at the moment. Of course, he had to start a long way down. He had problems in qualifying, didn't he, Jeremy?
Yeah, he had a water leak on that car in qualifying. And also in the morning, yesterday's session, they had a turbo problem as well. They had a good close look at the engine after changing the turbo. They did a leak check and everything on all the cylinders. Everything seemed to be okay, but not so. As soon as he went out for qualifying, the engine let go, or a waterline burst, or they thought it might be an intercooler problem. But whatever it is, they won't really know until they get it back to base in Reading, Pennsylvania.
The cars are here behind. Parker Johnson is the leader of the group in the green and white car, and then it's Raul Boesel in the Brahma car in the middle of that group. Alonso Jr. trying to find a way past at the moment. And Alonso Jr., who's had such an unlucky season so far, has had 2 gearbox failures in the last 2 races. Although, in fact, to say gearbox, it's actually been more of a clutch problem that has then turned into a gearbox problem because it's put strain into the gearbox. Hopefully, they've got that clutch problem sorted out now. But from back in 14th place, it doesn't look as though Alonso Jr. is going to do much about scoring Penske's 100th race victory. That's what we're looking for, remember, from Penske. They're on 99 victories now after that recent run of success from Paul Tracy. But from back here, I don't think Alonso Jr. is going to be quite able to take win number 100. Parker Johnston still leading this little gaggle of cars in 12th place. Rumours that his position within the team coming under a little bit of pressure, it has to be said. He hasn't had the sort of performances that both Cool and Barry Green would like to see.
That's true. Robbie Gordon certainly was slated for that drive last year. He left Walker Racing at the end of last year, and Robbie Gordon decided last minute it's not for him. So Parker Johnstone got that ride with Team Gould Green.
So the positions after 19 laps of 77. Gilles de Ferran leads from Scott Pruitt in second. Roberto Moreno having really what is his best run. He qualified in second place, remember, in Rio. That was a great performance in qualifying, but had a very incident-packed race. So Moreno going well, but this now is a battle that's opening up. Interesting to see. Michael Andretti, who was dropping back a bit, he's in 5th place, but he's coming under pressure now from the man that he battled with last week in Milwaukee. Remember those closing laps, the closing stages of the Milwaukee Oval race saw Greg Moore in the lead, Michael Andretti closing up to him. Now we've got a reverse of that situation, because the blue and white car of Greg Moore, the Canadian, is now getting right up behind the black car of Michael Andretti, and this sets to be a good battle. Not for the lead, of course. This is the battle for 5th position at the moment.
Yeah, we're looking back down the order. There seems to be a Firestone car close behind a Goodyear car. Several little mini battles, as you should say, down the field. And kind of interesting there, I think. Gilles de Ferran in the lead on Goodyear tyres. Scott Pruitt right behind him. There is Roberto Moreno. Dario Franchitti actually had a look to the inside of Roberto Moreno as they came into turn 1 on that lap. I think that cost him a few car lengths. He'd fallen back behind Roberto Moreno a little bit. I fancy we'll see him closing up again before too long.
Yes, we have a pretty good view of turn 1 ourselves here from the commentary box, so we can see the odd little chance for them to get through. Difficult corner on which to overtake. They've just gone through it there, but Moore just lining up at Michael Andretti, showing his car in the mirrors, and you could see there Andretti's car beginning to slide. It does look as though perhaps the Goodyears are not lasting quite as well as the Firestones in this early part of the race. Remember, most of the Goodyear runners chose the softer compound of tyre for qualifying. They can, of course, change to the harder compound at the first round of pit stops, but they've got to get there first. They've got to hold on to position before they get to the first round of pit stops and try not to lose too many places. And that looks to be a little bit of a problem at the moment for Michael Andretti. But don't forget, up front, Gilles de Ferran is also on Goodyears, and he also could be finding a little bit of trouble now as Scott Pruitt is right behind him on the Firestone Brahma car. There is the view from a different onboard camera on Gilles de Ferran's car from the side. That's the view as he comes through turns 13 and 14, almost coming around to complete the lap. He's got a flat out section and just a kink right, and interesting, we can follow the telemetry on board provided by Honda. You can see speeds of just over 180 miles an hour as they go across the start finish line through turns 1 and 2, and then a little short straight, and then hard on the brakes again as he goes into one of the tighter right-handers in 3rd gear. then accelerates along through a curve left into a section that's really rather like the complex at Thruxton here. Is a right, a left and a right as they come out of this, but it doesn't lead on to a particularly long straight. Little short shoot and then another fairly tight right-hander in third gear, taken at around 90 miles an hour. And then this is the fastest section of the course. Just watch the speed figures begin to build up now. Up to just about 190 miles an hour as he gets onto the brakes into the right-hander. A lot of braking force there, of course. Watch the accelerator here. Not much through the right-hander, then it begins to build, and then through the double left. They can almost make one curve of this before the slowest corner on the course, this right-hander.
Looks to me that car is just pushing a little bit, understeering just a little bit more, having to put a lot of effort in to get that car turned into the corners. And he's lapping, however, very consistently. He's lapping in a low 1:13 range, which is well off the qualifying pace. Of course, 4 seconds off where he qualified. 1:09.052 is his best lap in qualifying. 1:13.248 that time. So very, very consistent for Gilles de Ferran. And when he's lapping like that, there's not really a heck of a lot that Scott Pruett can do about it.
Pruett has opened up a bit of a gap. Well, these two have opened out quite a big gap over Roberto Moreno now. The gap is up to about 3 seconds. And Moreno dropping back just as we saw Andretti begin to drop back. So they do seem to be struggling a little bit. At least the two Swifts are at the moment. Behind Moreno still Franchitti right behind him. And as they crossed the line last time, there was only 0.2 of a second between them. So they're really battling. And Brian Herter into the pits. So that's an early stop. Lap number 23. We're just inside the first pit stop window really here at lap number 23. Interesting choice from Team Rahal to go for an early stop.
Yeah, that's very interesting piece of strategy there. But a couple of people at the back of the field. Gualter Salas was in a couple of laps ago. Very interesting strategy by Team Rahal there. At this stage, they're looking that they have to make 2 stops. So everybody else is going to have to make a stop before too long. And if Brian Herter can get up to speed now and get closed up, maybe he can move to the leapfrog to the front when everybody else has to come into the pits. It's a long shot, but when you're running 9th as he was clearly falling back from the group in front of him. Not a bad idea.
Interesting, Jeremy, that the two cars that you're just talking about, Herter and Sales, they're both Goodyear cars, aren't they? And yes. I wonder if that's a sort of signal to us that the Goodyear, the tyre they used it for qualifying for the Goodyears really isn't so good in race conditions.
Interesting. We'll just have to see how things... I think Robbie Rahal's in the pits as well,
yes,
isn't he? There he comes.
Here he is into the pits. So team leader comes into the pits as well, takes on fuel. Now what they can do here, of course, is go onto the harder compound tyre if they feel that's the right route, and that could be what they're doing down in the pits as Bobby Rahal comes back out once again. A very early stop from the two Team Rahal cars.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander. The team leader in there into the pits as well. A nice clean stop there. Back out. He's actually out ahead of Brian, and he'll be back now. Those two in 19th and 20th position. So a long way behind the leader. And yes, we'll just have to wait and see how that one pans out, won't we, Ben?
We will. It's an intriguing race, this one, as we look at the tyre wear. The competition between the two different tyre companies is intense as ever, and they're so evenly matched at most of the racetracks we've seen. Goodyear have had the advantage on most of the ovals, we have to say. Although, and Pruett slowed down. Pruett has slowed right down from second place and coming into the pits, but he was too slow there. That was very, very strange. He would have been going faster at that point. He'd obviously on the speed limit button coming into the pits, but it was way before he hit the speed limit button that we saw him going slowly, and Pruett dropping down the field. What is the problem? Let's see where they're going to work. Looks as though the engine cover is about to come off. Oh dear, what more disappointment for Scott Pruett. He's had a bad run in the last few races. The accident at Gateway, finished in 9th place in Milwaukee, and the man who at one stage was leading the championship now looks as though his chance of scoring good points here is all over. It means that Gilles de Ferran now has a 4.2 second lead over Roberto Moreno.
Frustration for Scott Pruett. He's last year, you talked a little bit earlier on about how he mounted a strong challenge for the championship at the beginning of the season and has done again this year. Last year it was a rash of engine problems that took him out of contention. Very, very frustrated with Scott Pruett by the end of last season. Of course, big gains by that team over the winter, and they're certainly way, way more competitive than they were. So, but bad luck again for Scott Pruett.
Join us as Gilles de France has decided to make an early pit stop from the race lead. He comes back out of the pits. It was an excellent stop from the Walker Racing crew. An interesting choice from Gilles de France to come in on lap number 28, one of the earliest to come into the pits. And that's now put Roberto Moreno into the lead. You ride on board with the Brazilian, and he leads here at Detroit. Fantastic performance from Moreno. Bits crossed up as he comes in through the right-hander, and he's got some back markers ahead.
I think one of the reasons for Gilles de Ferran's stop, I think first of all his tyres would perhaps pass their best, but more importantly I think he was coming up on a knot of slower cars, with 3 slower cars. Art Meyer, Gualter Salas and Hiro Matsushita, who already stopped. Here comes the leaders now coming up to that group of cars. Dario Franchitti very, very close behind Roberto Moreno, who I think is going to make a pit stop as well.
Yes, Moreno decides to come into the pits. It means that Dario Franchitti goes into the lead, and it's the second time that he's led a PPG kart race, because of course he led at Gateway, but into the pits comes Moreno, and Newman Haas making a similar decision not to get too held up behind the back markers, because they don't want to lose track time, and Franchitti could lose out because of that. We'll wait to see whether he comes in next time round. Good stop from Roberto Moreno's pit crew. Into the pits in the background comes Al Unser Jr., and remember he was quite a long way down the order as he comes into the pits, the only Penske in the race, with Paul Tracy not even taking the start with the neck problem. So here their pit is right down at the very end of the pit lane. A little bit of a front wing change there for Al Unser Jr. You could just see the mechanic on the left front making a little tweak to the front wing. That's to change the handling, and Unser looking for a slightly better performance from the car in this second stint. Tyres go on, fuel aboard, and Al Unser Jr. is back onto the track.
He'll be 18th place behind the 2 Team Rahal cars as we're on board with Michael Andretti coming through the fountain section of the track there. That's turn 12, the short straight now up to turn 13, a right-hander, and then a very fast kick. There goes Greg Moore down the inside of Hiro Matsushita, and Mauricio Gugelmin squeezing through as well. Hiro keeping well out of the way. Nice job, Hiro.
Dario Franchitti is our race leader as Michael Andretti now decides to come into the pits on lap number 29, and now they've serviced Roberto Moreno already. They go to work, the separate crew, the Kmart crew, going to work on Michael Andretti's car, and this means of course that Dario Franchitti is still in front. It means that Greg Moore has popped up to second place. Gugelmin is now in third place. Oh, a little bit slow getting away, lost a fraction of time there, and that won't help Andretti's cause any, but he gets away clear in the end on the rev limiter, or speed limiter rather, at 60 miles per hour, popping and banging, and then he can release the button as he comes out of turn 1 and rejoins the track. And there's Richie Hearn, by the looks of things, just going past him. Richie Hearn lying in 11th place at the moment. That means Andretti rejoins in 12th position.
It's going to take a while to sort this lot out, but it is interesting to me certainly that we've had a whole bunch of the Goodyear people in here and not yet many Firestone teams. That's interesting.
It is indeed. Dario Franchitti is still our race leader as he has a 2.4 second lead over Greg Moore. Third place for Maurizio Gugelmin. Fourth now for Jimmy Vasser, who's not stopped. Mark Blundell has moved up to 5th position now. There is the race leader in the Hogan car, Dario Franchitti. The second time that he's led a race, and he's looked so competitive here this weekend. Remember, it's the first time he's ever been to this Detroit track. What a brilliant step it has been to come into this series and learn the track so quickly. He seems to have adapted to oval racing so quickly. We saw that at the Gateway track at St. Louis, and here he's learnt this track gradually over the Friday and the Saturday, suddenly putting in fast times in practice on Saturday morning, and now going well. Art Meyer is in the pits though, and that looks as though a fairly routine stop for the German driver. You can see the fuel going on board, gets rid of a tear-off strip on the visor, and hopefully we see Art Meyer going back out onto the circuit. Yes, he is, as the work down there on Pruitt's car continues. Obviously problems, as we saw earlier on. It seemed to be an electrical problem of some sort for Scott Pruitt. Franchitti though continues to lead, remember, on the Firestone tyres. And what sort of lap times are we looking at here for Dario?
Yeah, 1 minute 14.1 last time around. Greg Moore in second place. Clearly they're closing. Greg Moore, I should say, last lap 1:13.4, so he took 7/10 off of Dario Franchitti last time around. I fancy this time it might be even more than that.
So he's got some pressure on him now from the young Canadian, the winner of last weekend's race in Milwaukee. And Greg Moore showing that he's not just an oval specialist. No way. He's come up through the ranks of the Indy Lights series, where they do the same tracks as these Indy cars themselves. and he was a record setter in the Indy Lights Championship, and he's definitely closing up to the back of Dario Franchitti's car. These two running basically the same cars. They've both got the Reynard chassis with Mercedes-Benz power and Firestone tyres. It comes down to the real niceties of setup and experience to a certain extent, but Franchitti at the moment holding his own, the lead 1.2 seconds.
Doing a phenomenal job too, it's Dario Franchitti. He has so much less experience than Greg Moore. Greg Moore has done a couple of Indy Lights races here. He's now done 2 IndyCar races here, and all that experience really is extremely valuable, even though, of course, the track may be slightly different in terms of character. As we watch Christian Danner there making a pit stop, Christian's been running well. He was up to 13th place before this pit stop, and there is Dario in the left-hand bottom portion of the screen, coming around to complete lap 33.
Christian Danner, just to remind, oh, he's coming into the pits, and you could see there he decided to come in to the pits, slowed it right down very at the last moment for Franchitti, and so he's really the first of the Firestone tyred cars to come in on lap number 33, so we're just a little bit under half distance. I wouldn't think that... oh, we got it off. That looks like Richie Hearn. Is that Richie Hearn into the wall? It looks like a fairly hefty whack backwards into the concrete wall there for Richie Hearn. And we're going to go yellow. And this, of course, is bad news probably for Dario Franchitti.
Well, yeah, tough to say. It depends actually how the pit stops... I think Dario's having a very long pit stop actually, because there goes Jimmy Vasser out of the pits. Oh. Dario's still stationary, and he's lost valuable ground there.
We didn't see what happened to Franchitti looking at the car of Richie Hearn at the side of the track, but he lost a lot of time in the pits there, as you say, Jeremy, and Jimmy Vasser has come out ahead of him. Still looking at the car of Richie Hearn, that's the cause, the yellow flag. Now we have gone to a full course yellow, there's no great surprise there. The pits are open, and this is going to give some opportunities to a few guys.
Yeah, here's a replay there. Richie Hearn just losing it on his own there, going through turn 11.
You know who that was behind him? It was Michael Andretti, I think, who managed to avoid him, just as he has done on numerous occasions this year. The number of accidents that have happened just in front of him, but he's managed to avoid most of them, and he managed to avoid that one. Andretti running in 10th place as Greg Moore has come into the pits now. So race leader Greg Moore heading into the pit lane.
Yeah, unlike of course on the oval track where the pits are closed to let the pack up behind the leader, close up behind the leader, doesn't happen on a road course. It's first come, first served. As soon as the yellow comes out, you can duck into the pits, so it doesn't cost you nearly so much. There is Greg Moore, an excellent stop by Phil LePan and the rest of that crew there.
Yeah, great stop for Greg Moore, as Parker Johnson also comes out. All of them stopping now, really. Mark Blundell, I can see, has just been in and is coming back out, but this has given Andretti the chance to get ahead of a few.
Yes, it has. Interesting, that one. As Moore was accelerating out of the pits there, it was very, very close as to whether or not he got out of there before Gilles de Ferran and...
Just having another look, sorry to interrupt, Jeremy, there. We're looking at Richie Hearn ahead of you. This was how he lost it. And oh, look at that. Andretti really had to slam it over the curve, didn't he, to get past. But he managed to do it. You could see it coming. Oh, no, and Dario's back into the pits. There obviously is a major problem with that car. It looks as though the fuel... No, that's the airline. No, this is the fuel line. It looks as though the fuel hasn't been going in properly, and maybe that's what caused the delay earlier on. He's had to come back into the pits to try and get more fuel on board, and suddenly, when it looked as though Dario was on for a podium finish here in Detroit, it's all gone wrong for him. Well, that's just the way it goes, I suppose, sometimes. Greg Moore leads here now to Detroit, where we're looking at lap number 37 now, still under yellow flag after the accident to Richie Hearn, and there's been really quite a change around in the order of things over the last few laps. We've had confirmation that it was a refueling problem. You're just looking at the marbles, by the way, at the side of the track, and just look at the amount of rubber there is around the edge of the track, off the line. The very narrow bit in the middle is where the line is, but the amount of rubber around is just incredible, and they're actually getting out there and sweeping it, and that's obviously causing this yellow flag to last a little longer. It was always going to be one of the problems. They're running a fairly soft tyre, both Firestone and Goodyear here this weekend. But what we're looking at here is the Hogan team, who are trying to repair the fuel rig. They had problems with this fuel rig when they tried to get the fuel into Dario's car. It just wouldn't go in. That's why he had a long stop, and that's why we saw him come back into the pits again. And as they've come round behind the pace car now, he's dropped right down the order somewhere, and he's down in 18th position. So, disappointment for Dario Franchitti, but Jeremy, let's just recap a little bit as we see now the fact that Greg Moore is actually our race leader.
Yeah, of course, before the sequence of stops started, Stop started. Greg Moore was actually back in 6th place. Now, here's how he was able to get up into the lead. The other people that came into the pits ahead of him, by and large, were all Goodyear runners. Now, by coming into that pit stop, they lost time, and when it took them also a few laps to get their tyres back up to temperature, back up to speed. Greg Moore, meanwhile, was running flat out as fast as he could go, and while he was out there running those fast laps, that's what enabled him to get enough ahead. And then when that yellow came out, he was able to duck straight into the pits, still at maximum speed, didn't have to slow down for the pace car, so able to come into the speed at maximum pits. Into the pits at maximum speed. What have I been drinking? And not enough, I think. And make an excellent stop there by the players' crew, and able to get back out into the lead there. So tremendous strategy by the crew, great driving for Greg Moore, and real teamwork there, I think, coming into play, Ben Edwards.
Yes, it's worked very well indeed. I mean, Gilles de Ferran is now in 2nd place. Moreno is in 3rd. By the way, we're just looking ahead to the next race on the calendar. 2 weeks' time, that is the Portland race. It's another beautiful road circuit, actually. Not a street course, but a road circuit, a very challenging track in a beautiful part of the United States. Portland, Oregon will be the venue for the next race. But just returning to what's happening here at the moment in Detroit, de Ferran in 2nd place, Moreno 3rd, Andretti has moved up to 4th position now.
And all those 3 cars, de Ferran, Moreno and Andretti, just to interrupt you just momentarily, all on Goodyear tyres, of course. That's what we're talking about there.
Maurizio Gugelmin is then in 5th place as we see the clean-up operation going on. And just look at the amount of rubber there is. I remember looking at these races in the past here in Detroit. It always has been a factor, but to see quite so much of it so early in the race is just incredible.
That is astonishing, isn't it? We've had 37 laps. We're just not quite halfway through this race. There goes the jet dryer, the jet blower, trying to get some of that debris out of the way. The blower will pull off, and are these guys going to have to go through that lot? Well, yes, they are. That's not too good.
That's not a good thing. No, they won't be happy about that. They've actually had to drive offline to go past the jet car. This rather seems to have defeated the object of all this. They've now got more pickup on their tyres than they had planned in the first place. So, of course, this yellow flag originally started with the accident to Richie Hearn. And the team manager of Richie Hearn is John Delapian, and he's down in the pit lane at the moment. It's Dario Franchitti coming into the pits again. Now it looks as though they've still got to get this fuel on board this car. It looks as though they've got that refueling rig working now. There's a nod from the refueler, but of course Dario has lost, he's basically lost any chance now. At last, the right amount of fuel goes on board and he comes back out. Let's hear from Delapian.
It's been very difficult for you this season. It has been, unfortunately. It's a little bit tough to work with it, and you know, it's very hard to tune, but we've been trying to do the best we can. We're kind of in it with the car for the year, so we got to do the best we can.
And that, of course, is the owner for Richie Hearn. We wish him well at Portland. Bob?
So Delapian there sadly seeing his man go out of it, Richie Hearn, but at the moment still, as Dario Franchitti catches up to the leaders, it's Greg Moore who's leading. Gilles de Ferran in 2nd place, Moreno 3rd, then Michael Andretti and Maurizio Gugelmin. Marc Blundell having moved up to 6th position now, so British hopes resting with Blundell rather than with Franchitti after all those refueling problems. And he's having a good race so far. The 2-pack West cars, there they are, just coming through picture now, running very competitively here so far this weekend. And don't forget that Jimmy Vasser is right behind them as well. Always thereabouts so far this year, picking up the pieces. Drove very well last weekend to finish in 3rd place in the end. Again, another example of being in the right place at the right time, always using his head in the races. And you can't discount Jimmy Vasser in this race either.
No, you know, he's driving magnificently this season. He hasn't always had the best car, but he's been super reliable, super consistent, and really done an excellent job. But for being taken out of the race really by Maurizio Gugelmin in Surfers Paradise, where he had a sure, it seems, 2nd place there. He actually came back to finish 10th, I think it was, but he had a great run going there, and he's had several more fine runs this season, and it's good to see. He's really upholding his honour as the PPG Cup champion, and by no means out of the running for the championship again this year. He's been chipping away, picking up the points, and he's moved up already. As you know, we said we started, where did he start on the grid? He was back in 13th position, and now running 7th, and plenty of time to go.
talking about time to go, we've just reached the half distance point. We're still under yellow flags, but we've completed 39. There are 38 laps still to go. Now, it's not impossible that with this amount of yellow flag going on, that a lot of these guys may try to make it through to the end of the race without stopping again. We would need more yellow than this. Obviously, this particular yellow flag lasted quite a long time because of the clear-up operation. They're trying to pick up the pieces of rubber all over the circuit, although probably won't make a huge amount of difference at the end of the day. But if there are more yellows, then some of the guys might try and get through without stopping again. We could get into a similar situation we've seen in a few of the races this year. Everybody holding their breath, just hoping that they make it to the checkered flag.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how that strategy plays out. In some ways, the guy who makes the second stop first might be in better shape. But then again, as we've seen with the Goodyear Firestone battle in the early stage of the race, maybe not. Because you want to get back out on the track ahead of the other guys. That's the goal at this stage. Passing on the track is very, very difficult, particularly with all that marbles out there. That's why they've sent the blowers out there, because if you just stray just a fraction off line, you hit those marbles, you're going to be in the wall before you even know it. So it rather does, it breaks up the race, but then again, they're trying to make a better race out of it as well.
The other problem as well is even if you don't actually go off on those little bits of rubber, what happens is that your very hot, slick tyre picks them up. It's sort of like a magnet for those bits of rubber. They build up on the tyre and actually completely change the handling of the car. And some drivers have, here in the past actually have had this problem and actually felt they had a puncture. They've actually thought they had a puncture. They've come into the pits to have the tyres changed. There was no puncture. It was purely that they had this build-up of tyre rubber on the tyre, and the car's handling just went completely awry, and they really couldn't drive it any longer. At least nowadays they have telemetry back to the pits that actually shows whether the tyre has deflated or not, and that's a big safety feature now of these kind of cars. The team knows if the tyre has deflated. If the driver's complaining, I've got a puncture, they can check their telemetry. They can say, no you haven't, you've just got to put up with it because there's a lot of rubber pickup on your tyre. You're just going to have to try and drive through it instead. So no chance for a changeover.
That final stop for Dario Franchitti there under that caution, really of no major consequence. It just cost him a couple of places. He was very close to the tail end of the field in any case. So the third stop really no big deal. He's of course his day is already effectively over in terms of winning a race, unless Carl can think of something fairly astronomical. Significance to get back towards the front of the field, but it's a great shame. But the good news again for Dario Franchitti, he's done a fantastic job.
Well, we were talking a little bit earlier in the programme, Jeremy, about this funny incident that happened to Maurizio Gugelmin when he lost his wheel after an accident coming out onto the Strand area of the track, as it's known. He wiped off the front wheel. There is Maurizio looking, the car looking a lot more healthy than it was the other day. This is how it looked the other day. This is how it was earlier. And that was where the wheel ended up, right in the middle of the lake there, the River Detroit on the other side. So it was one of the police divers. He had to get kitted up. I had to say it took him about 15 minutes to get all this lot on. We were sitting and watching this in awe, and then he swam his way across to go and find the wheel, which also took about another 5 minutes. Eventually he got there and rescued the wheel from the lake. The funny thing was that it was under red flag all that time that he was out there swimming to get the wheel, but as soon as he got there and put the thumbs up, we went green flag again, and everybody went out and practiced once more. Anyway, we're about to go green flag racing again here, I think.
Yeah, because there's a couple of big screens in front of the pit, so everybody is watching from the pit lane. A great merriment, as you say, in the pit lane. But there goes the pace car into the pits. That's interesting. They're passing the pace car while it's still on the track.
So the restart on lap number 42. Hiro Matsushita is actually at the head of the queue, but he will soon be passed by race leader Greg Moore. There he is in the blue and white car coming through to lead this race on lap number 42. Roberto Moreno lies in second position in terms of positions with De Ferran lies in second position. Matsushita, what happened to him there? He completely got it wrong. I don't know what he was doing because the leader wasn't actually right behind him. Matsushita, oh, and he's nearly causing another incident as he tries to rejoin the track. That was very strange there from Matsushita. I don't know whether he's just too busy looking in his mirrors or perhaps it was a result of cold tyres and, as we were talking about, a bit of tyre pickup as well. But there are your top three now, clear from the back markers. Greg Moore leads, De Ferran in second place, Moreno in third position, Michael Andretti in fourth, then a bit of a gap back to Maurizio Gugelmin and Mark London. belt.
Certainly, Greg Moore was very circumspect through turn 1 at the restart there, unlike Hero, who was pushing on as hard as he could to try and get out of the way. But Greg Moore, certainly, we could see him pick up some of the marbles on his tyres during that caution while they were sweeping things up, and he's just being very, very cautious at the front of the field. That's his prerogative. He's in the lead. He's the one who can set the pace. Getting past is going to be difficult at the best of times. Still a lot of marbles around there. Even just after one lap of green. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it's beginning to clear up a little bit online, but I think, as you say, they're all being a bit cautious with the tyres having cooled off a bit, and all those bits of rubber that sort of have been cleaned up a bit, but they've also been spread onto the line as well, so it all makes life a bit difficult as the battle for second continues. We're on board now with Roberto Moreno, chasing after Gilles de Ferran. He's got his teammate Michael Andretti right behind him, remember, and the performance of this Swift chassis still continues to impress everybody in the championship. Remember, this year there might only be two Swift chassis out there, but Carl Haas has great plans for many more to be sold next year. Not too many more, he doesn't want to go mad. They're looking at selling about 20 cars for next season. So when you take into account spare cars and two-car teams, it's not actually that many teams he's looking to supply. But what a great debut season it has been for this chassis. And there you've got the two of them running together, and Gilles de Ferran really coming under increasing pressure from Moreno now.
Yes, indeed, he is. Oh dear, there's another guy on the side. That's Michel Jourdain Jr. He was actually last of the people on the lead lap. He'd been passed by Dario Franchitti, buried that into the tyre wall. I think that's turn 7 there before the strand straight away, and I'm sure we'll have yet another full course caution. I don't think they'll be able to get that car out of the way before, but there's the safety team. There is a position there. The safety team are right on the spot there, and so far no caution.
Well, let's see if we manage to get away without a caution. They've got a bit of time before the leaders get back to them, and of course the cars are fairly well bunched up at this point, only having coming out of a yellow recently. They are now approaching that part of the course. They go through a sequence of right, left, right corners, and then they'll be coming up towards that particular bend where the incident has happened. Let's just watch as they come up towards the right-hander. Yellow flag's being waved on the spot, but in fact, yeah, Jourdain's car's well out of the way, so it looks as though we've got away with it.
Meanwhile, into the pits comes Alan Sir Jr. That is interesting. We talked about a little bit earlier on who can be bravest and come into the pits and make his last stop first. The Penske team obviously reckons that Alan Sir Jr. can go to the finish. Now, if there is a full course caution here, then it could be looking extremely good for Alan Sir Jr., particularly if the other cars are held up by the pace car. So that's going to be very interesting indeed. Alan Sir Jr. will rejoin 19th and last on the lead lap, but we'll see how it pans out over the next few laps as to whether anybody else is brave enough to come into the pits.
This is one of the course workers actually got hurt just now, clearing up this car of Michel Jourdain. You can see they were getting it backwards, and he actually got run over by the front wheel. Reports are that the guy is actually okay, but that looks as though he might have a few bruises to show off tomorrow morning, but hopefully not too badly hurt in that incident, as they did a great job, I have to say. They got Jourdain's car out of the way. We didn't have to go to a full course yellow, and that's meant that the racing has been able to continue. What are you looking at?
Sorry about that. That was Dario Franchitti there. Heck of a move under braking to get past Christian Danner into turn 1 with the smoke pouring off the tyres. And there also is, I think that's Juan Fangio making the move past Christian Danner as well. So Danner pushed off a little bit into the marbles and loses a couple of positions.
So drama in front of the commentary box there into turn 1 as Dario Franchitti determined to make up some ground after the disasters of that refueling rig going wrong. He's in 16th position, and now in fact in 15th place, having got past Christian Danner. Now let's just see what this is, a replay of that move of Dario Franchitti, and there he was just sneaking past Christian Danner. The tyres locked up, but he made it through very, very well indeed.
Great stuff. Great move by Dario Franchitti. He's already passed 4 or 5 cars. He's up into, I think, 15th position right now, and he's not hanging about. He's, so far as he's concerned, all is not lost by any means.
Yes, he's still charging hard, but look at that, he's got some damage to the end plate on his left front wing. Now that's just the end plate to the wing that sort of defines the airflow, if you like, at the end of the wing. It might not make too much difference. The problem is that actual piece of carbon fibre dragging around, and little bits of carbon fibre getting into that front tyre won't do it any good. It could be that he could pick up a puncture from that, and that's not going to cause the team too much joy to see that on their TV screens down in the pits at the moment. But there's no doubting Dario Franchitti's pace at the moment. He's going very quickly indeed, and we'll just have to see whether that little bit of damage does slow him down too seriously. In fact, it has actually ripped off, I think, the rear flap as well. So yes, that is going to make quite a difference. It's not just the end plate, it's actually part of the front wing flap. This is the battle between Parker Johnston and Bobby Rahal.
For 8th position now, right behind those two, Brian Herter and Raul Boisel, with Juan Fangio, I think it is, behind those two. One's going well in the Toyota car. He's running in 12th place race right now. Good effort by him. But Parker Johnston, boy, he seems to have a queue behind him just about every race, doesn't he?
He does rather. One of the drivers that we lost earlier on, who was running very, very competitively indeed, was the teammate to Raul Boisel, who we can see in that particular group, Scott Pruitt. Pruitt was running in 2nd place behind Gilles de Ferran in the early part of the race, and he had some sort of engine problem. Let's hear from him.
What exactly it was? Well, it was something terminal, something inside. We don't know exactly what, but unfortunately enough to take us out of the race. And it's real disappointing. I mean, it's really heartfelt because the car was running good. We felt the Firestones were going to be real good today, and Brahma, you know, we've had our ups and downs the last few weeks. We felt this was, you know, a good chance for us to make that breakthrough and get the ball rolling again, and unfortunately.
What about the track conditions, Scott? How are they?
They were pretty good. They changed a little bit. They're getting more and more rubber put down, and with that, the car was picking up some more understeer. I was just kind of pacing myself off Gilles, and I think he was just kind of watching what I was doing, just letting the laps go by. But overall, the track's in great shape.
Bob?
So Scott Pruitt out of the race, as we saw earlier on, from what could have been a very good finish here, but that's the way it goes for him as well. Parker Johnston still leading this little group in 8th place, Rahal in 9th, Herter in 10th place, Boisel 11th, and Fangio in 12th position.
3 of the championship contenders already out of this race, from Paul Tracy, Alex Zanardi and Scott Pruitt. So that gives Michael Andretti, Greg Moore, Jimmy Vasser the opportunity to make up some ground here in the championship positions. Yes,
Michael Andretti probably the best placed at the, well, no, Greg Moore, of course, the best placed at the moment. He leads this race, but watch out for Michael Andretti in 4th position. Running very strongly so far, and at the moment 3.6 seconds behind Greg Moore.
There is Juan Fangio there. He's running as Dan Gurney's All-American Racers team, the Castrol jockey sponsorship for the Renault Toyota of Juan Fangio. Really doing a super job. He's not losing much ground at all to Raul Boisel in front of him. There is Raul Boisel, just a flash of the rear wing of the Brahma car. And a great effort by Juan Fangio. Steady improvement by Dan Gurney's team, or particularly I should say by the Toyota engineers. He does not have the latest engine in that car, the Phase 3.2 spec car. He just has a 3.0 in the car, but the handling of the car is magnificent, and Juan is taking full advantage.
Good to see. Of course, Toyota scored their first ever points here last year, so I wonder if they can get into the points once again. He's in the points at the moment in 12th place, and as the team were happily telling us, a good anniversary is 30 years since Dan Gurney won the Le Mans 24-hour race, so it really would be great for them to get back into the points here on this occasion in Detroit. Back with the leaders though, you're looking at first Greg Moore, then Gilles de Ferran and Roberto Moreno. Those are our top 3 in this race, and we've completed 48 laps. There are 29 laps still to go here, and the question of whether they are going to make a second stop. We've seen Alonso Jr. make a second stop, so he should be in good shape for the rest of the race. It's a question of whether these other guys up front are going to have to make a second stop. The likelihood is that they will have to, and then timing those stops is going to be so critical. The race could well be lost or won in the pit lane. Moreno at the moment though running very well there in 3rd place, up ahead of teammate Michael Andretti. Fastest section of the course here, and then hard on the brakes into the right-hander. There's the gap back to the 2 Pac West cars this weekend, running very, very closely together all the way through qualifying and the race itself.
Yeah, Mark Blundell, certainly he was really looking forward to getting back on the road courses. Much more his forte. That's Hiro Matsushita. Problems there for his Renault Toyota. That is a 97 car, but clearly problems for Hiro. But it's good to see that Mark Blundell in particular going so well this afternoon, 6th right now.
Welcome back to Detroit. Drama here. The yellow flag has come out because Matsushita car was pulled off to the side of the track, and the leaders are all into the pits. It's a dramatic pit lane battle. Greg Moore gets out quickly. Michael Andretti is very quick out. He gets out ahead of Moreno. De Ferran loses out. He's back to 4th position of those group of cars. Jimmy Vasser is next out of the pits. Looking out of my commentary box window here, the cars all flooding down the pit lane, and everybody taking advantage to make their second and final stop under that yellow flag. But what a drama. Everybody just sort of launched themselves at the pit lane there, and it's de Ferran who's lost out most of all, I think, a little bit like he did in Long Beach. I was talking to Ron Meadows, the team manager, earlier. He said really this year his crew have done a great job on the pit stops. It was just that one occasion in Long Beach where it went wrong. They've done some practice, they've changed things around a bit, they've made some really good stops since then, but just then I have to say it didn't go their way, because Greg Moore, Michael Andretti and Moreno have all come out ahead of de Ferran.
Yes, that's pretty interesting indeed, and what is more interesting at least is neither of the Pac West cars came into the pits. So Gugelmin and Blundell, the Pac West car and a Motorola car, Reynard Mercedes both on Firestone tyres, will be at the head of the pack for the restart. Now, if they can somehow stretch that fuel, I think it's a pretty tall order, but they obviously reckon they can make it. They're hoping probably on another caution perhaps. We've got, what, 25 laps to go when they come past next time. Also not making a pit stop was Patrick Carpentier, who is just, there is the Moreno, de Ferran, the target car, and Patrick Carpentier did not come into the pits that time around. Will be right behind the two Pac West cars, I guess. And also Dario Franchitti, of course, so there goes the pace car with the one finger up there, signaling 1 lap to go before the restart. But Dario Franchitti, of course, who did take on that fuel a little bit later than the other guys, he's able to make up quite a bit of ground through not making a pit stop now.
Tell you what's interesting, Jeremy, this morning I went down to the pit lane before the morning warm-up. Few visitors from Formula One here this weekend, including Steve Hallam from the McLaren race team, and he was having a chat with Mark Blundell, just saying, you know, what are you going to do when you go out in the warm-up this morning? And Mark was saying one of the things they really wanted to do was work on the fuel mapping and really analyse how much fuel they were using, because it had gone wrong last weekend in Milwaukee. They actually made a little bit of an error in deciding when to come in and how much fuel they had, you know, or how much they needed for the rest of the race. So he said that was one of the things they were going to look at this morning in the warm-up. And it makes me wonder now, seeing the two Pac West cars up at the front, do they really think that they might be able to stretch it all the way to the checkered flag without making another stop? It's an interesting case, and I should think it'll be tight, but they were definitely working on that this morning and looking at how far they could run. So the two Pac West cars there at the head of the queue now. Maurizio Gugelmin first up, Mark Blundell lying in second place, and in fact Carpentier also not having stopped, he is in third position.
There's the Motorola crew of Mark Blundell conferring there in the pits, and a lot of fingers crossed, I suggest, there will be in that pit for the next few laps.
Yes, of course, and it's interesting that it looks as though they've chosen the same strategy for both cars, so the eggs all in one basket, as we would say, unless they're planning to do something special. But it looks as though that's what they're going to gamble for. Try and take it all the way. Of course, Alonso Jr. has moved up as a result of all this, I gather. He's now up to
just up in
place.
the top 10. Yeah, he's in 10th place. And he and Carpentier moving up, of course, through not making a pit stop, pushes Fangio back to 14th there, as we're getting actions here, getting ready for the restart. Two Pac West cars in front, Patrick Carpentier, Greg Moore, Michael Andretti, Dario Franchitti, there he is, the car number 9, in 6th place. We're getting ready for the restart, the pace car pulling off.
So the green flag awaits them as they come across the start-finish line once again. Maurizio Gugelmin leads as they go on to lap 53, or lap 54 rather, and Carpentier, of course, not having stopped as well, is now in third position. It's been a complete change around as different strategies are employed here. Greg Moore, our former race leader, who has been into the pits, he is now down to 4th position, and he's being chased by Michael Andretti and Dario Franchitti. And Roberto Moreno, who's been up in the top 3 all afternoon so far, he's now dropped down to 7th position, with Gilles de Ferran in 8th, Jimmy Vasser in 9th, and Alonso Jr. in 10th place. You couldn't really have had a more topsy-turvy race than we've had so far, but it could become even more topsy-turvy in the last laps.
Yeah, certainly interesting to me that Michael Andretti, able to move up several positions there, gets past both Gilles de Ferran and his own teammate Roberto Moreno during that round of pit stops. He's now in 5th position, and he can charge, he can be flat out. He knows that he has the fuel to get to the finish, as of course there does Greg Moore right in front of him. And they're rather hoping that they can dial up those cars, dial up the boost, so to speak, the fuel mixture, richen it up so it makes maximum power, go flat out to the end of this race, and hopefully they'll have enough grunt. There is Dario Franchitti's front wing end plate flapping around badly there in the breeze. We can hear it every time he turns into turn 1 in front of us, flapping around on the ground.
Yeah, that's got to be affecting him now, indeed, Franchitti, but he is running in 6th place, remember now, because of all the change around on the pit stops. so he doesn't want to lose any position. Moreno, actually, they confirmed that he got fresh tyres and full fuel. It's possible that Michael didn't go for a full load of fuel. We'll try and find that out for you. That may be why he was able to get ahead. But Moreno now putting Franchitti under pressure, who's struggling with that damaged front wing. But it's still not going to be very easy for Moreno to find a way through. This perhaps a chance if he can get a good run out of this corner. This leads on to the long straight, the Strand as it's known, and he really needs a good exit there to build up the straight line speed. But they're then coming into a kink at the end of the straight, and that's what makes overtaking here so difficult. Yep, not alongside enough, and has to follow Franchitti through this very tight section now.
He's lucky that that is not fouling the tyre, isn't he? It's it appears to be flapping just clear of that left front tyre, which is good. You can see the car understeering there as he goes around the left-hander. But there's no point in bringing him in if, as long as he doesn't get black flag. But it's certainly pretty dangerous. I'm quite surprised it's not fallen off. It's just flapping around there in the breeze. Amazing.
We just had confirmation from the Hogan pit that they won't call him in. You're right, and so they're going to leave him out there and tell him to get on with it. And well, of course, he's got to do the best he can. 6th place at the moment. If he can hold on to that, would still be a great result. Still good points for him. It would be the best result so far, but he's got to try and get there. So Franchitti struggles on with that damage. Moreno right behind him in 7th place. Up front, meanwhile, let me tell you that Guterman's opened up a little bit of an advantage over Mark Blundell. It's up to 1.8 seconds. So Guterman's pushing quite hard. Maybe Mark is taking things a little bit more carefully. He knows he's in second. He can't really put a move on Guterman, so he may be a little bit more cautious in 2nd place. But between them, they've opened up a bit more of a gap over Carpentier as well.
Yeah, and Dario Franchitti's crew, I'm sure, won't want to bring him in. The question is whether he will be black flagged. In actual fact, as we said it, we're just hearing from race control that he will be black flagged. He will have to come into the pits and get that piece of errant carbon fibre out of the way. Great shame, but it's not Dario's day, is it? But it's a safety call. Look at the car understeering there through the left-hander. But it is a safety call called by the CART officials. That piece of fibre, easy, could just fall off there. It could be flicked up by that front tyre. It could either hit Dario or it was more concerned the official, it hits somebody else who's running close behind. So great shame for Dario Franchitti, but a safety call by the CART officials.
He should see the black flag as he comes over the start-finish line this time. There it is, the black flag for Franchitti, and that will be backed up by radio communication from the pits, and he will have to come into the pits at the end of this lap. Of course, he can still race round until he gets back to the pits, but a new nose cone is being prepared already for him. It just is turning into one of those days, though, as you said, Jeremy, for Dario Franchitti. And it's just not destined to be here in Detroit, but he's going to get a first podium finish. But surely it's not far away, the sort of performances we've seen in the last few races. A little bit of a bad run in Milwaukee for him. They didn't get the handling of the car to his liking at all in the race. But if you take the Gateway race and this one together, it just shows the learning curve that he's on, but how much he's improving as well.
Yeah, just doing a fabulous job for a rookie driver, particularly one with so little experience of these sort of cars. He hasn't driven big engine single-seater cars in his life. He had one test, I think, didn't he, for the McLaren team as a result of his contract with Mercedes-Benz. Of course, the ITC car he drove had plenty of horsepower, but it also weighed a heck of a lot more than does an Indy car. So he's doing a wonderful job. He's very, very proud, as of course is Carl Hogan, of his young rookie driver.
There he goes, slows down, into the pits comes Dario Franchitti, and this responding to the black flag. Now time to change the nose cone on that car, and that's going to drop him right down to the back of the field. Of course, the whole stream of cars going past us here through turn 1 as the crew go to work, something they will have been practicing over the course of the weekend to make a quick nose change, and using the air tools with the special attachments on the front there. But it does take a little bit of time. The Allen bolts going into the front part of the monocoque, part of the crash structure as well, so you can't just clip it on with a couple of flimsy clips. It's a very vital part of the car, so it takes a little bit of time to change. We move back to the track action now, and Alonso Jr. we can see from the onboard camera of Jimmy Vasser. And Vasser's running in 8th place. Alonso Jr. is in 9th. Behind them is Raul Boesel, 10th. Parker Johnston, 11th, and 12th place for Rahal.
There goes Dario Franchitti out of the pits. He is last on the lap. He is 19th now. and of course he needs another caution to get back into contention for this race. Even then he's got a heck of a lot of work to do. But there's Jimmy Vasser, as you said, holding off Al Unser Jr. Here's the on-board from Jimmy Vasser, looking back at the Penske of Al Jr. And meanwhile, the two leaders coming past here, they're 1 minute 14.014, Mauricio Gugelmin. Mark Blundell right with him, actually, and those two pulling out nearly over 4 seconds over Patrick Carpentier, who has a huge train of cars behind him in third place there, the young French-Canadian.
Of course, Carpentier may have had a little bit less fuel on board, or perhaps a running slightly different mixture, and that may be the reason he's dropping back under very intense pressure, as you say, from Greg Moore, Michael Andretti and Roberto Moreno behind him as we concentrate on the battle for ninth at the moment. This group of cars, it's going to be coming to a point soon, Jeremy. We're going to start seeing people taking risks. They've all sat behind each other for quite a long time during the course of the afternoon. It's no longer the early stages of this race, though. There are 19 laps to go as Gugelmin leads Blundell, Carpentier in third, Moore fourth and Andretti in fifth, and we could see some fireworks before we get to the end. To Moreno, and he's still pushing hard, lying in sixth position at the moment. Mauricio Gugelmin is our race leader, having completed 60 laps out of the 77, and Gualter Sales is going a little slowly.
He actually slowed as he came here through turn one. He nearly caused PJ Jones right behind him to hit the back of him. He suddenly slowed quite abruptly going through turn one, just limping around now trying to get back to the pits.
Up front, though, remember, it's still Gugelmin leading. Mark Blundell lies in second place. The two-pack West cars up front, and their lead over Carpentier, some 3 seconds. Carpentier then holding up this gaggle of cars. There is Patrick Carpentier, the French-Canadian, his first season of the championship. The top rookie at the moment. He leads the rookie table ahead of Dario Franchitti. But at the moment, he also leads this gaggle of cars, which comprises of Greg Moore, Michael Andretti, and Roberto Moreno, with Gilles de Ferran not too far behind as well.
Interesting, the last lap by the leader, 1:15.6. That's not very quick at all. And a couple of laps ago, Brian Herter, who'd been held up after his pit stop, he was actually stuck behind Fangio for a few laps. Fangio not running quite so well, it seems, on this set of tyres. Herter got past Fangio and then did a 12.9, which is significantly faster than anybody else is running at the moment. Most people are now running 14s and 15s. That's 1 minute 14, 1 minute 15. Herter did a 1:12.9, but I think on the last lap around, he must have had a quick spin because he suddenly dropped way back from his teammate Bobby Rahal, having just caught right up with him. So all sorts of funny things going up and down the chart here. And Gugelmin comes past again now, 1 minute 15.1 that time around.
Look at this battle getting hotter and hotter between Carpentier and Moore. There's no doubt, looking at those lap times you're saying, Jeremy, that those top three cars are really sort of fighting it a little bit, looking at fuel perhaps, looking at the tyre wear. If only Greg Moore and Michael Andretti and Roberto Moreno could get past these cars that didn't take a later stop, then there's no doubt that they would be going a lot quicker. But the problem is to just get past. We've seen Carpentier over the last few laps, his car really sliding around, but Greg Moore simply cannot take advantage of it. He's trying a few different things. You could see there, let the car run out a bit wider for a bit longer onto the back straight, but this is where it's so difficult to find a space, and Carpentier doing a great job. He's just putting the car in position so that Greg Moore can't really go for a move without taking a huge risk, and the championship is also so important to Greg Moore.
That's exactly right, Ben, and it's not worth the risks so far as he is concerned. It is interesting, though, that Carpentier now is running a very steady pace, and he and Moore are gradually inching closer toward Mark Blundell. Gap last time around between those two, 2.4 seconds, with Blundell just 1.5 seconds behind Gugelmin. Incidentally, back on the Brian Herter thing again, he did another 12.8 last time around, so nearly 3 seconds quicker than the leaders are going, and he's now caught up almost to Bobby Rahal again.
So Herter, the fastest man on the circuit, but he's way down. He's in 13th place. He's not even in the points yet, and that just shows you the two Team Rahal cars are quite a long way down in this particular event in Detroit. Rahal might have been a former winner here, but he's not going to win this one today, and he's going to have his teammate right behind him soon. But we've really got to focus on this battle. Carpentier is doing a fantastic job of holding the car together, if you like, because it really does seem to be sliding around quite a lot. They're the two leaders flash through, Gugelmin and Mark Blundell, Carpentier, Greg Moore, Michael Andretti, and really focusing on this battle for third between the two Canadians, because if there's going to be a change, this is where it's going to be. And of course, once Greg Moore, if he gets past, there's no doubting that he would be able to close up to the two-pack West cars fairly quickly. Bit of back markers around as well. Michael Andretti we ride with now. and he's also looking to score points. Greg Moore and Michael Andretti both with a great opportunity to close up a bit to Paul Tracy, unable to start this race, as we've mentioned a couple of times. But just to remind you, Tracy not racing here today after suffering neck problems. Look at the car. Carpentier's car through the kink, which is taken flat out as they come past the start-finish line. Even through there, the car seems to be snaking around. But still, Greg Moore cannot find anywhere to actually get alongside him.
No, with the marbles offline, it just makes it that much more difficult to get alongside anybody, Ben. It's a really tall order here for Greg Moore. Patrick, as long as he doesn't put a foot wrong, it's going to be tough to get past the guy. And you know, they're definitely inching closer. There is Mark Blundell in front of them, and Gugelmin we just saw go out of the picture. So they are closing in on the battle. Moore just needs to be patient here and let the race come. Look at those marbles offline. You just cannot risk running offline there to try and make a pass.
So Michael Andretti still chasing after Moore, and I just wonder what's going on in the Pac West pit at the moment, wondering whether they can actually get to the end of this race. They will have readouts, they will know the fuel situation in the car and whether they are going to make it to the checkered flag or not. And it must be pretty tense down there at the moment as they see the two cars up front, first and second. That really would be something, wouldn't it? But we've still got 12 laps to go here. We know that the likes of Greg Moore, Michael Andretti, Moreno, De Ferrer, they're fine on fuel. They can turn up the wick as much as they like. They're better on tyres as well because they stopped later than the two leaders. So there's still some way to go here. It's about 25 miles still to go and everything to play for. Gilles de Ferran at the back of that group, and still Carpentier fends off Greg Moore. The battle between two Canadian drivers, and two Canadian drivers from very different parts of Canada. We're going to a part of America which is much closer to Greg Moore's hometown when we go to the Portland race in 2 weeks' time. We're quite close to Canada here, but this is closer to Carpentier's part of Canada, really.
Yeah, this is true. Over on the West Coast, as you say, in a couple of weeks' time. And Greg Moore really considers Portland International Raceway his home circuit. He did a lot of racing there in Formula Ford and Formula Ford 2000 in the formative stages of his career. So he's certainly looking forward to getting up to there. Here's look at his whole train of cars here, all the way back to Bobby Rahal at the back of that pack. In actual fact, Brian Herder has caught up to him. Herder is in 13th place, and he can probably just about see the leader, at least on the strand, on the longest straightaway.
That's really incredible, isn't it? 13 cars virtually in a train as they come past us here into turn one, and just nobody able to quite find that little gap. I tell you what, though, it shows the high standard of the driving as well, because if you only put a wheel slightly offline here, you're going to lose a big chunk of time, and yet everybody driving carefully, controlling their pace and not making that little mistake. Again, Carpentier's car sliding there, but he hasn't made that mistake that Greg Moore is looking for. It only takes one slight error and suddenly Moore will be through in a flash, but so far Carpentier is driving wheel perfect, and as are most of the guys behind him. None of them are giving a little chance to whoever is closest.
Greg Moore certainly filling the mirrors of Patrick Carpentier, and there was a quick flash of Tony Bettenhausen's crew there cheering on Patrick Carpentier.
Yes, but what it looked like was that they may have to put fuel in that car. It may be that Carpentier is not going to have to be able to stay there. They definitely had that we've got news from the pits. They're saying that he is going to have to pit. They can't make it on this amount of fuel, and it makes you wonder how Pac West think that they're going to make it as well, but perhaps they can. And it is Carpentier who comes into the pits now. Patrick Carpentier can't hold off that train any longer. What this means is that Greg Moore will soon be up behind Mark Blundell in the battle for second position. Gugelmin still leads, Blundell in second. Oh, he's overshot the pit. He's forced to move backwards. But he's waving. Oh no, more problems. He's got to stop in the right place. The tyre wear that high probably as well, that he just judged his braking wrong coming into the pits. And they have to get that car into the right place, otherwise the fuel hose doesn't reach.
Great shame for Patrick Carpentier. Really irrelevant, to be perfectly honest. He's already out of contention for a top points finish, so annoying, sure, but he's already going to drop down to 17th place, which is where he would be in any case. So
yeah, back to the back of that queue, really.
Absolutely.
So no chance for Carpentier anymore. His moment of glory is over, and both the rookies having a bad day today. Well, these two rookies who are leading the championship in the rookie terms. Franchitti down in 17th place, and that drops Carpentier down to last now. So, back on board with Michael Andretti, who has moved up to 4th position as a result of that. And still in the background, look, Gilles de Ferran there, making a little move on Roberto Moreno. Really just a look more than anything else, just trying to rattle Roberto. But we've got just 9 laps to go as the leaders come across the line. And we're into the final sprint. This really is where people will start taking a few chances, I would think.
I don't know. It's tough, you know, for the championship contenders. They have to keep the PPG Cup Championship in mind. That's the goal. That is the ultimate goal of all these drivers, is to win the PPG Cup Championship. They can't afford to go throwing away positions, throwing away valuable points just for the odd position here and there, even for the victory.
And of course, for Greg Moore, what he may well see is the 2 cars in front of him run out of fuel. If they haven't got the sums right, they're not going to finish in front of him anyway. So he's got to think a bit here. There he is, right behind Mark Blundell now. Greg Moore right tucked under the rear wing of Mark Blundell's Motorola car. But is he going to take the gamble and try and get past and risk getting into a situation that could cause damage to the car, particularly when he's got one of his main championship rivals right behind him, Michael Andretti, in the Black Swift? This really is quite a situation, and a lot rests on the young Canadian's shoulders at the moment.
A couple of back markers ahead of him too. That is going to be interesting. But you know, in 1.5 laps is all it took Greg Moore to close that 2.5 second gap to Mark Blundell. So no question, Greg Moore is way faster than the 2 Pac West cars because they are trying to stretch their fuel. But closing and passing, as he found out with Patrick Caponche, 2 different matters. There he is. He's getting a good run on Mark Blundell. Can he make a move down to turn 3?
Oh, they came so close there, didn't they, with Mark Blundell having to block the line a little bit just to prevent Greg Moore coming through. But it's really turning into a battle now, and Michael Andretti's joined into that battle as well. So Mark Blundell, 2nd place, that would be his best ever finish in the PPG Kart World Series, but he's under so much pressure for that 2nd place. Greg Moore putting in a concerted effort to get through there. Michael Andretti right behind him, and Moreno next up.
Great shot from the helicopter there as they go down the strand and into turn 8, and there is Mauricio Guggenheim at the front of the pack, Mark Blundell, Greg Moore, Michael Andretti, and there are the 2 cars just out of the picture to the right, they're out of the screen. There they are ahead of them. It's Arndt Meyer and Hiro Matsushita, the 2 last cars in the field, and boy, this is going to be interesting. Mauricio Guggenheim is just praying that they are going to see him in the mirrors and get out of the way.
Yeah, they look as though they're having their own little battle, of course, as well. The Japanese driver and the rookie German, who gets well out of the way there, or in fact coming into the pits, is he? Yes, Meyer into the pits. Matsushita now trying to get out of the way, or is he? Oh, you've always got to be so careful getting past Matsushita. You never quite know whether he's left the door open or not. Now there should be an opportunity to get there. Oh, no, yes, no, yes. Oh, God, goodness me. Guggenheim squeezes past eventually, but Matsushita really causing a lot of heart flutters there as finally he got out of the way of that lead group, and Guggenheim gets through safely. And Guggenheim's pit confirming that they reckon that they can make it through to the end of the race. This really would be quite something. A Pac West 1-2. That's the situation at the moment. But there's still 7 laps, or 6.5 laps to go now. And can they make it through to the checkered flag? We've seen some economy runs in the last few races, but I think this is the economy run to beat them all if they make it.
Yeah, it certainly is. They're running 6 seconds off the qualifying pace. Admittedly, he was held up that lap by Hiro, I think, coming onto the start-finish straight, but clear sailing now, no slower traffic to worry about, and Mauricio Guggenheim and Mark Blundell are still 1-2, and that's what they want. It's up to the other guys to find a way past them.
Well, of course, Mauricio must be so happy that he's got Mark behind him, because he's got a bit of a buffer to Greg Moore. Mark's doing a great job to hold off Moore at the moment. Just 6 laps to go now. Guggenheim leads both of these cars, running about as lean as they can get away with. In other words, using as little fuel as possible, burning methanol, of course, in Indy cars, and the engines burn a lot more methanol compared to the amount of petrol they would use, much less economical on methanol. But the question is, have they got enough to make it to the flag? That's all they really care about, and nobody quite knows. They'll be having fuel readouts in the car, fuel readouts in the pits. The Greg Moore's team will be trying to work out whether these cars are going to run out in front of them, but nobody really knows.
They're doing 1 minute 16 seconds now, 7 seconds slower than qualifying, at least 3 or 4 seconds quicker than they were going earlier in the race. And but you know that's what it's all about. You've got to get past the guy. It's kind of a shame because there's Parker Johnstone, a problem there for the Team Cool Green car. Parker pulling out of the way there in turn 8 into the runoff here. A shame for Parker, doing a pretty good job there, running in 10th place he was before that. Looks like an engine problem, doesn't it?
It does. There was oil, actually. There was a line of oil behind him as he pulled off there, and I don't know whether that's any of that got left on the track, but it looks like a fairly major engine failure for Parker Johnson.
So some oil on the track to go along with the marbles. It doesn't matter really whether you're on the line or off the line. It seems you're going to be sliding around.
You are indeed, and 5 laps to go. Maurizio Gugelmin, Mark Blundell 1 and 2. There is Bruce McCaw, the boss of Pac West, and he raced today. He actually raced in the celebrity race earlier on in the Neons. He finished in 3rd place. He was leading that race, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. He was starting from the pole and led the race and had a quick spin in turn 1. He had a hard time explaining to me how he did manage that one. He actually just got in a bit too deep under braking while in the lead, looped it around, but able to carry on and come back from 5th and get onto the podium. So he was pretty happy with himself.
Well, he was pretty happy with himself, but he must be absolutely crossing everything at the moment to see his 2 cars running 1 and 2. They have never won a race. Gugelmin has never won a PPG Kart Series race. Mark Blundell has never been on the podium. The team, which was created just a few years ago and has gradually brought together the elements that are required for race success. This year they really have put a good package together with the Reynard chassis. They've got the Mercedes-Benz engines and Firestone tyres. It's a very, very competitive package. It's really the first time that the team's had such a good package, but can they hold on? They've got such opposition behind them. Greg Moore still chasing, then Michael Andretti and Roberto Moreno in 5th, with Gilles de Ferran, who we were riding with just there. He's running in 6th place.
4 laps to go, that's all there is left, and those 3 leaders absolutely nose to tail, and then behind them there's another train of about 8 or 9 cars, and there is Gilles de Ferran looking to try and make a move on Roberto Moreno in turn 3, not able to pull it off, oh dear, some close stuff there. Some great racing going on here, but you know, Maurizio Gugelmin really has been magnificent this season. He's had the best qualifying average of anybody in the field by quite a margin, and he's been consistently good at every race. That one mistake in Australia where he took out Jimmy Vasser just got a little bit greedy in his own words, as he said towards the end of that race, but boy, that man deserves a victory.
He does. It would be great to see Maurizio Gugelmin take the win here. Also, of course, be brilliant to see Mark Blundell get a good result, but still everybody on the edge of their seats to see whether they can make it. Just over 3 laps still to go. It's a 2.1 mile track. Doesn't seem like very far. All they've got to do is about 6 miles, but 6 miles you've got to run under full weight. Oh, look at Gilles de Ferran. Sorry, Jeremy, he's got the inside of Moreno. Oh, Moreno touching the wall. De Ferran's got through. Is he on the inside? Yes, squeezes through. Gilles de Ferran gets past, and now Jimmy Vasser trying to do the same. He's got past as well. Suddenly Moreno drops 2 places, and at last this bit of overtaking that comes through successfully, but it shows you how aggressive you have to be if you're going to make the move work.
Nothing to lose there for Gilles de Ferran, really. He was back in, well, he was in 6th position, and he figured he certainly was able to get good traction out of the corners and able to get almost up alongside Roberto Moreno a couple of times in the past. Great move there by Gilles de Ferran.
So that moves him up into 5th position now and makes up for some of the disappointment. He was the early race leader here. He set pole position, hasn't put a wheel wrong. They had a slightly slow pit stop at one stage, but really hasn't done anything wrong and finds himself down in 5th place. But the leaders are there, the 2 cars of Maurizio Gugelmin and Mark Blundell, still holding off the Canadian Greg Moore, who won last time out in Milwaukee and has really been the man to beat here this race. He worked his way up from slightly further down on the grid, but he's driven absolutely superbly. Michael Andretti's dropped back a little bit in 4th position. Under pressure now from Gilles de Ferran, Jimmy Vasser, Roberto Moreno. There's Alonso Jr., who's had a pretty good race as well. And the 2 Rahal cars at the back of that group. Brian Herter now in 11th position, right behind his teammate Bobby. But they've had fuel problems themselves. Just 2 laps to go now. Just 4 miles for the 2 Pac West cars to hold on to what would be an historic victory, a 1-2 result. But can they stretch the fuel mileage? As I told you earlier, they were working on this in the warm-up this morning, and they are going to find out very, very soon whether that work has paid off. Greg Moore hopes it doesn't. He was the one who stretched the fuel mileage in Milwaukee to take the win, and now it looks as though he may have to suffer the fate of following 2 other cars stretching the fuel mileage here in Detroit.
Yeah, it's a fuel game, isn't it? The PPG Cup Series racing. It's it's so fascinating. I mean, okay, it's difficult to pass on this racetrack, but you've got to get yourself in a position to win the race, and that's what Pac West has done here this afternoon. It's a team sport. It's the ovals are all very well. The passing is much easier on the ovals, and that's all well and good, but strategy is a great big part of PPG Cup racing, and that's really what I think why it's so exciting. There is Gugelmin, there is De Ferran, I should say, trying to make a move on Michael Andretti, not able to pull that one off on the Swift this time around.
So here we go, the white flag will be coming out this time. It's the last lap for Maurizio Gugelmin and Mark Blundell, and Greg Moore has just 2 miles in which to try and get past these two, but watch out for any stutter, watch out for them slowing down. If the fuel runs out on this last lap, you'll suddenly see the car slowing and Moore flashing past. It could still happen as Gugelmin leads them round. They're still lapping fairly slowly relative to what they can do. They've been looking after their fuel in this latter stint of the race so effectively. But have the sums worked out? Is that Mercedes-Benz engine going to run all the way to the checkered flag? Oh, Gugelmin's run out of fuel! Maurizio Gugelmin runs out of fuel on the last lap. Mark Blundell leads the race, but can his car go that little bit further? Greg Moore is in second place and chasing. Blundell's car just has to go about 1 mile to make it to the checkered flag to take his first win here in Detroit. There are a few more corners to go, but Moore is now hounding him. Unbelievable stuff here in Detroit. Mark Blundell accelerates through the gears, builds up to 6th gear, up to about 180 miles an hour, down a couple of gears. He's got one more right-hander, and then the kick. He's slowed down! Mark Blundell has slowed down! He's run out of fuel! Greg Moore's gone past! It's gone wrong for the Pac West team! Greg Moore comes through to take the win! Michael Andretti is second, De Ferran is in third, Jimmy Vasser is fourth, Roberto Moreno is fifth, Bozell is sixth, Brian Herter is seventh, Anser is 8th, Rahal 9th, Fangio 10th, Papis 11th, and Blundell out of the points altogether. Jerry Forsyth celebrates, but what disappointment for Pac West. I cannot believe it. The last lap and both cars out of fuel. Greg Moore takes his second win in 2 races, and there is Mark Blundell. He's not crossed the line. He throws the steering wheel off the car. Unbelievable disappointment for Mark Blundell, the British driver who was so close to the win, about 100 meters away from his first PPG race, and Blundell out. We're back to amazing scenes here, but what about this man, Mark Blundell? You have got to feel for him. Look how close he is to the finish line. That's how close he came to winning the race here in Detroit. Running out of fuel, they gambled, and they so nearly made the gamble pay off. But Maurizio Gugelmin and Mark Blundell both running out of fuel on the last lap. And there, the happy winner is Greg Moore. It's the 5th Canadian win in 5 races. Fantastic stuff for Greg Moore and the Forsyth team.
A big hug there for Jerry Forsyth, and what a day for Pac West. You know, we talked about patience being the key to this race. Patience very much the key for Greg Moore. He couldn't afford to try and make a pass on either of those Pac West guys. Look how happy he is. His success comes all at once for Greg Moore. 2 wins in a row, and it jumps him right up into contention for the PPG Cup points. Paul Tracy still leads, of course. 94 points for Paul Tracy. Michael Andretti now has 86. Greg Moore 85. Jimmy Vasser 69, and Alex Zanardi 67 are the top 5. But I tell you what, everything's closed up here this afternoon, a result of an incredibly dramatic ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix.
Greg Moore just cannot believe it. He pushed so hard in that race. He had to sit behind those 2 cars. It must have been so frustrating for him. He could lap about 3 seconds a lap faster. There's Norbert Haug of Mercedes, the sports boss of Mercedes-Benz, who hit 3 cars. He was looking at a 1, 2, 3 there. In the end, it didn't turn out, but he's still the winner. Let's hear from Greg Moore.
Congratulations from Mercedes, from your dad. What did your dad tell you?
Oh, my dad just said, good job. You know, it's this is the team's win this one. I mean, we stretched it out on it was Steve Chalice's call to leave the Firestones on for I think we left them on for over half the race there, and I think that's really what won us the race, was the pit position there.
Now, what about near the end? Blundell and Gugelmin in front of you. What was the conversations back and forth on pit road with your team?
2 laps from the end, they said, well, if you get a possibility, a good chance to pass, you better do it, because we think they might be able to go. And then I saw Maurizio bobble, and then down the end of the back, I saw Mark, and I thought, wow, I just can't believe this. This is unbelievable.
At 22 years old, we've said you're the youngest winner, and now a Canadian that wins, now so much on your shoulders. I mean, can it stop? I mean, where does this all end for you?
Let's hope it never stops. I just love this. This is beautiful. I love it.
Well, congratulations to you, Greg. Let's check in with Gary Gerald. Gary.
Well, you see the fuel cell, it needed less than a half gallon of fuel, and this man would have been on the podium with a victory. Mark Blundell, have you ever had a more crushing experience in your motor racing career?
I don't think so, and I mean, you know, I keep talking to a few of my friends and I keep saying, you know, I've got a lot of bad luck at the moment and it's going to turn, but today wasn't the day either. I'm just really upset because the team did a fantastic job all weekend. We've been really strong and I take my hat off to them. They made the gamble and it nearly paid off. You know, we were only one corner away, but, you know, that's racing.
Tell us what it was like, what you were trying to do, because you had to be aggressive, yet you had to be defensive, and you try to conserve fuel at the same time.
Yeah, I had a tough job because I had to keep on the back of Maurizio because I knew he was in the same situation, and if I was pressuring him, he may make a mistake or run out earlier, than which he did. And then I had to be defensive because Carpentier and Moore were on my backside. Plus I had to save fuel at the same time, so it was difficult. The thing what really got me as well was my right-hand wing mirror came away, and I had no vision in the right side, so, you know, I may have been a little bit defensive there, but that's because I couldn't see.
Well, I guess the encouraging thing is this team, once again, has proved you can be competitive, and you're so close to getting there.
We're going to get there. You know, don't worry, it's not a case of how, it's just a case of when.
He's amazingly optimistic considering what he's been through in the last few minutes, Jack.
Let's check in with the silver medalist today, Michael Andretti. I'll tell you what, it all unfolded in the last couple of laps.
Yeah, we knew it would. I mean, there was no way they could make it on fuel. If they would, I would have been really surprised. And this time there was no yellows for them.
Now, when you know that, do you do anything different in the cockpit of the car? Do you press a little harder, maybe?
No, I was just trying to hang on to my position. Different was all over me in the end, and I barely was able to hold them off because I had no more rear tires left.
Tire wear was critical here.
Big time critical.
Bob?
Well, Michael Andretti getting that second place finish in the end. Gilles de Ferran in third, Jimmy Vasser fourth, Moreno fifth, and Raul Boesel in sixth. And as Michael said, just one more yellow flag lap perhaps, or a couple more yellow flag laps for the two Pac West runners, and they could have won that race. But in the end, that's not the way it went, and Greg Moore ends up the winner here at Detroit. And just looking down at the finish positions, in the end, Guterman finished in 16th place and Mark Blundell finished in 17th. Dario Franchitti ended up in 13th place, so he was just outside the points. Good performance from Christian Danner, though. Good to see that Christian managed to get a point for 12th place in the Peyton Coyne car.
Yeah, that's the second time he's done that at this racetrack, always with an underdog team, and a good effort by Christian Danner. Ahead of him, Juan Fangio and Max Papis, the first points of the season for Toyota as well. So some good stories, a lot of good stories from here this weekend. And Mark Blundell, of course, what a heartbreak for he and Mauricio Gugelmin. I mean, the gamble, as Mark said, just didn't pay off, Ben, but boy, it was a heck of a try, wasn't it?
It was, and it was worth a try, wasn't it? Because it got them in position, it got them up to the front of the field. I just wonder how he's going to replay this race in his mind, though, because he must replay like the last section of the race and just think, well, if only I'd been a bit easier on the throttle, or if I just used a higher gear and a couple of other corners, I maybe could have made it. It must be so frustrating to go over it in your mind.
Yeah, it's got to be just, you know, a couple of cupfuls of fuel would all he would have needed to get to the end of this race. But yeah, it is amazing, isn't it, the fuel pickup on these cars these days. In years past, the car would always give a hiccup, and you'd probably have another half a gallon or so to maybe get you back to the pits. These cars nowadays, they hiccup and they stop.
Yeah, you could actually see that, didn't you, when Mark ran out of fuel. He tried jiggling the car from side to side. It made absolutely no difference. Absolutely no difference at all. And with the bag tanks as they use nowadays and the pickups from that fuel tank, it gets every little last bit of fuel out of the tank, and that's it. It's all over. There's a great view, by the way, of where we are. We're sitting down on the sort of right-hand or bottom end of the island, the racetrack down at the bottom end of the Belle Isle Park. And that's in the Detroit River with the United States on one side and Canada on the right-hand side as we're looking at it. Just get my bearings right. And a beautiful view, beautiful day, as all the boats on the Detroit River there as well enjoying themselves and having a bit of a view of the race at the same time, I should think.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite call Detroit the Monaco of North America, probably, but certainly it's a great vantage point from out there on the Detroit River, and quite a few people taking advantage of it. A good view of the cars as they flash down the strand there at best part of 180 miles an hour. That's extreme right-hand corner of the picture as you're looking at it. And it really was a dramatic race here again on the Belle Isle Raceway. It always seems to promote plenty of drama here. There might not have been as much overtaking as we would have liked perhaps, but it certainly was possible. And here's a quick word to Roberto Moreno, a great run to 5th place for the Brazilian driver.
You feel good because in what is slated to be your last drive for Newman Haas, you get a 5th place spot. But what a scramble at the end. Nobody really knew what was going to happen.
Well, we had a little clue what was going to happen. Was really up to who had the best tires towards the end, and we were looking good for a good podium at the end. Our tires started to give up, and the back was really bad to hang on to it. But I'll take 5th spot. It was fantastic. They came out. Budweiser team did a fantastic job for me, and I hope I'll be back sometime, maybe in the future, IndyCars, either a short future or a long future.
Do you feel like you've proved something here with this opportunity to run for this team, that you can run with the best?
I think it was very good for me. I think that's is up to you to say, and everybody that see me racing. So it was good racing today. I think once my confidence is really 100%, which is not yet, it's only 90%, I think I'll be up front fighting really hard to win races.
That's Roberto Moreno, and right here on the bike in a very crowded and busy pit lane is Jimmy Vasser, who was also there. He congratulates Roberto Moreno. Tell me about your day and this wild finish and how it all kind of shook out.
Well, we had a good race car, you know. We started picking them off slowly, and Roberto was running well, and Jill put kind of a risky move on him, put them both in jeopardy, and but he pulled it off, and it put Roberto in a tough spot, and I was able to slide by. And then obviously the PacWest cars with the fuel there, they went quite a bit farther than I thought they should go, so they really stretched that fuel.
Did this day turn out to be what you imagined it would be on a very tight and demanding circuit at Belle Isle?
Yeah, it's been just like this all the other years, very difficult to pass. You get somebody up front that's not running that quick, and it gets real single file packed up behind them. But I'm happy for my Targa Chip Ganassi team and getting the points that we did. And too bad for my teammate Zanardi to be out so early. I think he could have done real well today too.
You were about to get run over by Walter Payton. I know that's intimidating. He's out of here. Jack?
Gary, this man here will probably go, what if?
So the race from Detroit then, a dramatic win for Greg Moore in the closing stages from Michael Andretti and Gilles de Ferran. And Paul Tracy has seen his championship lead cut down to just 8 points from Michael Andretti and 9 points to Greg Moore. It means that it's all getting closer once again. The next 2 weeks we'll go to Portland for another race on a great road course. Thanks for joining us here on Eurosport. It's been Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw, and we'll look forward to you joining us again from Portland. Until then, bye-bye.